Bill Oram joins the program today. Bill Oram, formerly of the Salt Lake Tribune. He was in L.A. for a minute. Now he's up close to his hometown, up outside of Portland. And our guy went viral for a clip that I think he manufactured. You know, Porter, I don't begrudge anybody for trying to build their brand the way that Bill is doing it. You know what? If this is what the business is, I'm going to hop on a LinkedIn because I cannot do it. I cannot exist every day creating content to build a brand as a social influencer. But our guy Bill Oram is kind of leaning into it.
I will be honest. The last in getting into sports media in the year 2017, I believe is when I started. Maybe no foresight there, but the move from like just watching the games and kind of covering what's going on to we're kind of trying to be part of the story. We're trying to, create drama. And this isn't Bill Oram. This is mostly like the sports media direction. I think Bill is a fantastic writer and journalist, but the ESPN side, the social media side, we talked about Stephen A. last week. It's kind of hard when you just want to like post pictures of silly birds on the internet and you're a sports media guy. There's a weird balance you got to find there.
What is the Porter Larson brand?
That's what I'm saying. It's nothing.
No, it's not nothing. Like if you follow Porter on social, because your Twitter brand is a little bit different than your Instagram brand. The Instagram brand is you're a runner, you're a biker, you love the outdoors, you love weird birds, you like country music. The Twitter brand is you're more of like a sports media person on Twitter. On Instagram, you're just more of like a hippie outdoors dude.
Yeah, I mean, Instagram is for photos, right? It's for pictures. So it's, I'll throw a photo of a game that I'm at, of course, the Rose Bowl, whatever. But yeah, for the most part, the Instagram is just I guess a collection of pictures I've taken, which usually ends up being birds, lakes, such. That's not what sports media is asking for, and I know that, but that's why I try to keep it a little bit on more subject on the X, Twitter, whatever that's called now.
The only time that I would consider posting videos is if the person in charge of my paycheck was like, you have to do this to get paid. Otherwise, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
Because there's no reason to.
And you're on YouTube.
And I don't think, hello, everyone, the YouTube world. I don't think it's good for your mental health to be online all day posting content you've created and then listening and reading what people say about you. I just think it's bad for your mentals. That's my opinion.
That's the other part. There's a part of sports radio where we can turn this mic off and set it to Freddie Coleman at night and go home and not really have to worry about what folks are thinking in the car. Hopefully they're enjoying it. Hopefully they're having fun. Hopefully they're learning a few things about sports here and there. But there's a button you can turn off. And sometimes social media, you just sit there and scroll. And a lot of the people may like what you have to say, but they're not going to comment. It's the people that don't like it that are going to, and that are going to stay on it, harp on it. And I don't know that we're all supposed to be connected as we are. But
no. The internet is where cowards go to feel brave. If I've said it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. However, Prize Picks has asked me to start posting my picks on social. So guess what I'm going to do?
Videos.
I'm going to start posting my picks on social. You want to know why? Because they pay me to do their spots.
Videos. Videos.
Let's get to it.
Breakdowns.
Speaking of which, Tony Jones is our first guest. But before we get to Tony, courtesy of my best friends at Prize Picks, it is time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 and run your game with Prize Picks.
Shout out to my very special friends at Prize Picks. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go ahead because I'm going to start posting my Prize Picks breakdown. You want to know why? Because they asked me to do it. And if you as a client want to pay me to do your read, and that means Instagram videos, reach out and I'll do it. Otherwise, it's pictures of my dog, my son, my family, and then me playing golf. That's all it is.
There you go.
But shout out to Prize Picks because springtime is here and baseball season is officially underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, take your pick or more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Download that Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700, and when you place your first $5 bet, they're just going to hook you up with $50. So you might as well go get the free money, play around, see if you like it. By downloading the Prize Picks app today and use the promo code ESPN700, you get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks run your game. I'll be posting a Prize Picks lineup probably on my Instagram page. I don't know. I'm rarely on Twitter anymore. So if you want to follow along and see what I'm going to do tonight, I'm going to hone in on Jazz Rockets. All right, Tony Jones will be our first guest. But before we get to Tony, we've got a little breaking news about Utah men's basketball that is something to, I think, delve into here pretty quick. So we have been pontificating on the possibility on this show over the past, I don't know, week or so, that because there has been really not a lot of traction or news with the Utah men's basketball program following the hiring of Rafael Chilius and then Wes Wilcox, we've just been wondering aloud whether or not Alex wants a clean slate, whether or not AJ wants a clean slate. And, the coaches he will hire, coaches that he's met throughout his sojourn in pros. And then what about the players that he's going to grab to come play for him next year? Is he interested in getting any of these young men back who have already hit the transfer portal? Well, this morning, Pete Nakos, no idea who my man is, but he talks about transfers, has reported that Keanu Dawes has withdrawn from the transfer portal and is planning to come back and play at the University of Utah. Okay, so this is interesting for a couple of different reasons. It does indicate that Alex is actively talking to some of these young men who have elected to hit the transfer portal and may be interested in having more than a few of them back. So Hunter Erickson as a grad transfer. By the way, shout out to my guy, Hunter Erickson, who did the right thing. He's just like, I'm like 25, my last year in college, I'm going on the rock, man. He's going to Hawaii. So shout out to Hunter Erickson. I think he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, if you have 1 year and you were granted that year by some worldwide pandemic insanity, go to Hawaii.
Absolutely.
Go to Fiji.
As soon as I saw the announcement, I'm like, I want to hang out with Hunter Erickson. What a great call. So Hunter Erickson on his way, hopefully to the North Shore of Oahu to enjoy his final year as a college basketball player. But Keanu's an interesting case study. And I've been careful here because I don't want to say like Craig didn't like him, but Craig didn't play him the way that Josh played him. There were some inconsistent minutes, and there were spurts early on because I didn't know much about Keanu Dawes. He was a transfer. And in the Mississippi State loss, he was the only athlete that looked like he belonged. He had 13 points, 12 boards on 6 of 8 shooting. He had a couple of other good games versus Oklahoma State at TCU, where big physical teams, Keanu looked like he belonged as an athlete, and a lot of the players on the roster simply didn't look like they belonged. And in the 4 games prior to Josh taking over, okay, Keanu went for 5 points, 2 points, 4 points, 2 points, 14 minutes, 12 minutes, 17 minutes, 18 minutes. Josh took over, and Keanu had 5 double-doubles in the 7 games that Josh coached. Butler, 19 points, 11 boards, 29 minutes, 5 of 6 from the floor, 8 of 9 from the line. UCF, 21 points, 15 rebounds, 8 of 13 from the floor. ASU, 15 points, 11 boards. Arizona at McHale, 18 points, 10 rebounds, and Utah got smoked. You can make an argument that down the stretch, outside of Gabe, who was the best player all year long, that Keanu Dawes was the best player that kind of manifested his productivity after Josh Eiler took over. So, like we talked about, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect, whether it's Keanu Dawes, whether it's Jake Wallin, whether it's Ezra Asar. Keanu is a sophomore. So technically, my old school college brain says he has 2 years to play, but I guess you can be a grad transfer. So Keanu, as a young sophomore, has 3 years of eligibility left. At least that's my understanding. And so one piece of the puzzle for the Alex Jensen Big 12 foray for the first time, his first time coaching this team, the first piece of the puzzle is now in place, as Keanu Dawes has withdrawn from the transfer portal and will come back to play for Alex in the University of Utah. All right, we'll catch a quick break. If any other news comes down, of course, we'll bring it to you. But we do have a little bit of Utah basketball news to get into. We'll do some. There is also a 4-star and a top 100 recruit for an official visit who played for Rafael Chilius. He's going to be on campus coming up in the next 2 weeks. We'll tell you who that is. We'll do some spring football a little bit later on as well. But coming up, batting leadoff on a Wednesday afternoon, Tony Jones. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. I know TJ is just mouthing the words right now. I know he's waiting to come on because we had to play the GOAT today on a Wednesday afternoon. We can debate all we want about hip-hop. You can't debate who's at the top. It is Biggie. There's no doubt about that. TJ, happy Wednesday. How we doing, buddy?
I am indeed mouthing the words.
We could probably play a minus track, and you could probably rap over it. Next time, would you be interested in doing that?
We can try.
All right.
We can certainly try for sure.
Oh, well, then it's on. Just so you know, if you agree to try, and we're gonna put you behind the microphone if you're ready for it.
I'll do my best.
Oh man, what
one of the reasons why my journalism career started was because my rap career ended.
Wait a second. Now I've got questions. Did you at some point legitimately try to launch yourself as an MC?
I absolutely did not, but I did not have that talent.
Okay. Because now I'm thinking of your MC. Oh, wait, I know what it is. It's MC Red Hot Lover Tone, right? That's what
it would have been. It would have been MC Red Hot.
MC Red Hot. You know what? I'm thinking that we need to pivot away from journalism, and I think you need to start this now.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, it's just
I'm
a thought.
40.
It doesn't matter. You can get started whenever. Age is just a number. It depends on how you feel.
Yeah, that's a little too late to start a rap career, bro.
All right. Well, maybe a side hustle. But anyway, moving on. TJ, let's start here. We got some news a couple of hours ago, and I honestly was unsure if Alex Jensen was going to bring anybody back, coaches, players. I feel like he might want to have a little bit of a blank canvas and paint his own picture. But Keanu Dawes has withdrawn from the transfer portal, and the reports are he's going to return to Utah and play for AJ. I want to be careful here because I'm not saying Craig didn't like him, but Josh Eilert played him in a way that Craig didn't. And in the 7 games that Josh coached, Keanu Dawes had 5 double-doubles. So give me your thoughts on this. What should Ute fans know? How should they feel about Keanu Dawes coming back as a rising junior to play for AJ?
It took, because of, the conundrum, the playing time, and it took a while to see, just what kind of talent it is. And he was a top 50, top 60 talent for a reason. I mean, he's, long, he's athletic, he can shoot the ball, he can put the ball on the floor. He has offensive versatilities where, he can play on the interior or he can play on the perimeter. He can finish above the rim. But I think the biggest thing is for me, outside of Keanu, outside of Asar, there wasn't a lot of Big 12 athleticism on this roster, right? Like, when you played at Houston or, you played a Texas Tech or, some of those teams that had just grown men, you saw the real disparity and you saw the athleticism disparity and you saw the talent disparity. And I think, keeping, one of your only real true Big 12 athletes, in the fold for me is a big thing. And I think, the other skill sets that I think match what AJ wants to play, without having seen, AJ's offense, I think is important as well.
So you referenced, you referenced as Ezra Asar. So I'm just going to throw a couple names. Hunter Erickson is going to spend his final year of college eligibility in Hawaii, as he should. So way to go. Happy for him. That leaves Ezra Asar, in addition to Jake Walleen. Mike Shravjamps would be an option to come back as well. I think Lawson Lovering has a year as a grad transfer. His dad has sent out some tweets like, thanks for supporting us. So it feels like he might be gone. I guess technically Miro Little is an option. Of all of the names I just threw out there, any other players you think Alex is going to try to convince to come back and play for him?
No, I think that's the core. And out of that, I think Asar is the one that I will pull out the stops. Jake Walling, I like him a lot as well. Both of those guys. Ezra Asar, to me, if he had a jump shot, if he had a reliable jump shot, I would look at him as somebody who might be able to play at the next level. But 6'7", 6'8", long arms, really tough kid, can really handle the ball, can really pass the ball. Like I mentioned with Keanu Dawes, um, you know, bona fide Big 12 athleticism, or real Big 12 type of body as well. And, he can play the 4 and the 5. Um, the lack of a jump shot probably hinders him from playing the 3. But if he were able to extend his range and kind of become a little bit more versatile on that, I think that he could be, somebody who might be an all Big 12 level player next year. So, those 3, Keanu Dawes, Jake Wally, and Ezra Asar, I think are the prizes and the guys that I think that, would serve as a nice building block going into next season.
Let's do a little bit on BYU real quick before we get to some NBA stuff, and we'll do some tournament stuff as well. I want your take on how Cooper Flagg has looked, and Dylan Harper is now declared for the draft. No surprise there. I did see a story that Ace Bailey might transfer to Purdue and play next year, which is wild, but we'll get there in a moment. So before we get to some news on the transfer portal, they've got 2 players in officially now. Before the Alabama game, Ken Pomeroy hit us with a stat that I couldn't stop thinking about up until the start of the game. Because when you look at like the strength of both Bama and BYU, and if you put it more in a vacuum, that 12-game stretch when BYU went 11-1, most of their offensive metrics lined up pretty close to, not exactly with, Alabama's one of the 2 or 3 elite offensive teams in the country, namely pace of play. But most of the other offensive numbers matched up pretty well. And the Vegas line, I think, ended up Alabama was about a 5-point favorite. But the one clear line of delineation is Alabama was the second best team in the SEC at guarding the 3, and BYU was ranked 230th in Division I at guarding the 3. Okay, so with that context, did Alabama have a historic shooting night, or did BYU fail to guard the perimeter?
BYU ushered in Alabama's historic shooting night. When you keep going under screens and, those guys, Mark Sears, Libero Philon, and those guys, Grant Nelson are getting, wide open looks at 3. You played the game. You get comfortable as a shooter. And, Alabama got really comfortable. And by the time, BYU adjusted and tried to turn their water off, I mean, they were hot. And, you can't do that. The one thing about, Bama with their guards, not only are their guards, really great 3-point shooters and collectively, but, those guys had range. Those guys were super comfortable pulling from 25 feet, super comfortable pulling from 3 or 4 feet beyond the arc. And, that's, to me, that's something that Kevin Young and his staff should have seen on film. And that's something that they should have tried to take away. And at the beginning of that game, first 10 minutes of the game, they kind of went under almost every screen. And, you go under on Mark Sears, you're just asking for trouble. And he got hot, and and BYU couldn't turn his water off. They got to Duke, and it was a completely different thing, right? Like, they went over every screen. They started doubling ball screens. They forced them inside the line. They made Alabama's bigs have to make decisions when Duke doubled the screens and blitzed the screens, and it was a completely different game because they never got comfortable from behind the 3-point line. You can't give, especially in the Sweet 16, you can't give guys practice looks. And BYU, gave Alabama practice looks for about 10 minutes. And I think that was probably the most disappointing part of the game, or the game plan was just that, obviously Alabama had, a historic shooting night, but I didn't think it had to end that way. I think that BYU kind of helped Alabama into a historic shooting night. And, by the time the Cougars adjusted, it was too late.
And, to your last point, they waited way too long to change their defensive concept, and they were down like 20, and they made a bit of a small run here or there, but then Alabama knocked down a couple more shots and it was just over. And I want to be clear, year one under Kevin Young, it's proof of concept. It was a great year. Sweet 16 is not nothing. But after the game, Cannon Catchings was interviewed, and there just was something about his tone, his body language. He never fully cracked the rotation consistently. This is a 4-star recruit that a lot of people believe is a future pro, and reports are he's one of their highest paid NIL gets. Well, he's into the transfer portal. Rumors are circulating about North Carolina. Tamika Catchings, I think it's her son.
Yeah, that's her son.
Okay, so and look, you can tell that as a pro scout, there's a lot to like, and he's young. He's got to fill out. He's got to learn, but he's got a really smooth handle. He can really shoot it when he has space. So, look, BYU's returning a group of players. We'll get to another transfer portal story later on. But what do you make of this situation with Cannon Catchings, a really bright young prospect, leaving the program?
I don't know how much I make of it because, frankly, I don't know how much BYU is going to miss him. I mean, they got AJ DeBanza coming in, and essentially, those guys, play a lot of the same position. I would say that Cannon is a 4-3, like a power forward who can also slide down the small forward. But I mean, the number one player in the country is coming in. So I'm not sure how much BYU per se is really going to miss him, and especially if the Cougars are able to get Richie Saunders back. So there's that's one thing. But the thing with Catchings for me is, he was a freshman. He was coming in super talented, obviously super talented. But there were a lot of veterans in his way, right? Like, Richie Saunders was terrific. Trevor Nell was terrific. I mean, you can look at, places in the rotation where, you could say, hey, you can squeeze them in there. You can get them 15 to 17 minutes a game. But, I mean, I don't have an argument with Kevin Young's rotation this year. Like, I don't look at his rotation and say, Mawat Mag played way more than he should have. I don't look at his rotation like that. I think that, everybody that was in his rotation deserved to be in the rotation. And, and I think that could you have gotten Catchings more playing time, especially for the NIL number that he was rumored to be at? For sure. But you have to make, hard decisions when it comes to big-time major college basketball. And, this was a team that gelled in the last month and a half. This was a team, that went deep into the Big 12 conference tournament, and this was a team that went deep into the NCAA tournament. So it's hard collectively to really criticize, what Kevin Young's rotations were down the stretch in the last 4 to 6 weeks of the season. So I think that Catchings is a guy who can be a future pro if he does the right things. I think that he's going to transfer to another program, and I hope that he does great things. But I don't think there's somebody that's always going to be unhappy when you get to this level of basketball. There's always going to be somebody who feels like who felt like he should have played more than he played. And in BYU's situation, in this specific situation, it just happened to be Cannon Catchings.
And to your point about who they could be returning, now if I'm Richie Saunders, like he's 23, and I think he played his way into an NBA shot. I did not feel this way about him last year. And so if I'm Richie, I'm just simply looking at the age factor. And if I get feedback during the intel process that I could get drafted or get an opportunity, I think I'd go. But if the feedback is you're borderline, I'm sure BYU has a lot of NIL lined up to get him some cash to come back. And you referenced the Bansa. So, Tony, it could be a scenario where Kevin told Cannon, like, you probably aren't going to play very much again next year because of what we're coming. These things are not. It's not a straight line. It's not a linear decision. This could be feedback that he got. Like I might not get run there next year. I got to go find a place to play.
Well, let's in Richie's situation, I'm told that if he comes back, his NIL number is going to be significant. And as well it should be because, at this point, I think he's one of the best offensive players in college basketball. But, to your point, if Richie Saunders does return, I mean, AJ DeBance is playing 35 minutes a night, and Richie Saunders is going to be playing 35 minutes a night. I mean, for a guy that of Cannon Catching's ability, he thrives with the ball in his hands. That's his style of play. There's not going to be a lot of shots to go around, or a lot of ball handling usage to go around, with DeBance and with Richie Saunders. So, if I were Catchings, I would probably be in the portal. I'm a former top 40 recruit. I'm a guy who can really play, and I'm a guy who's really talented. There's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be lined up for my services if I'm catching. So, I think that this was one of those things where kind of life and NCAA basketball just happens, and both sides just move on.
Dallin Hall has also officially entered the transfer portal, and I wonder if this means that Yegor's coming back. I also kind of felt the same way. If I'm Richie, like I said, the age factor motivates me to try the NBA, and I felt like Yegor's NCAA tournament appearance and how highly thought of he was prior to the start of the season may motivate him to leave. But do you think Dallin Hall entering the transfer portal means that Yegor Demon might be coming back? And what do you think ultimately happens with Dallin Hall?
I don't know what happens to Yegor, but that's by somebody I trust. That was what I was told, that if Yegor is considering coming back, that means Dallin Hall enters the portal. So my eyes definitely perked up when I saw the news that Dallin entered the portal. And I do wonder if that truly means that Yegor is considering a return to BYU. Dallin's going to have a lot of suitors. He is a tough two-way, really experienced, really talented starting point guard at the major college level. If I were Utah, I'd pull out the stops to try to get him. If I were a number of Big 12 programs, I'd pull out the stops to try to get him. I mean, he's a guy that affects winning on a significant level. I've loved him as a player since he was at Fremont, and he's been a terrific player for a long time. So I think that it's going to be really interesting to see where he lands.
All right, moving over now to some big picture NCAA stuff. We have all 4 number 1 seeds in the Final Four, which is both a little bit disappointing, but also somewhat exciting because I think both these games are going to be awesome. Florida-Bama played in February. Florida-Auburn played in February. Florida went down to Auburn and beat them. The Clayton kid is just like ridiculous. And then we have Houston and Duke, which is going to be a backyard brawl. Let's go Houston and Duke because I do think Cooper Flagg, and I will continue to remind everybody, has reclassified. He turned 18 3 months ago, okay? And because of the COVID year and the new NCAA rules that allow grad transfers and such, Cooper most every night is playing against essentially men, college basketball players in their early to some to mid-20s, if you're Trevor Nell, 26, 27 or whatever it is. So this will be a backyard brawl where Cooper might face some physicality that feels a little bit new for people that haven't watched him. What are you going to be watching for as far as Houston and Duke and what Cooper can show in that moment on that stage against that team?
I mean, it's going to be a real test for Cooper because, like you said, I mean, these are grown men that he's playing against, and I thought Alabama had a bunch of grown men, and Cooper shot 6 for 16 from the field. I mean, the greatest thing about it was I still thought Cooper was the best player on the floor. And he shot 6 for 16 from the field. I mean, he turned the ball over 4 or 5 times. There were times that he looked unsettled. Grant Nelson blocked him at the rim. There was another time where he got blocked at the rim, and he was still the best player on the floor because of everything that he does. So it's going to be interesting. Houston, bumps you off your cuts. They don't let you get comfortable. Those guys have the bodies of 25, 26-year-old guys. Some of them are 25, 26-year-old guys. They have that guard play. I mean, those 3 guards that they have are really, really terrific. So for the first time, kind of in Kelvin Sampson's era, he has the grown men and the ability to defend, but he also has the ability to shoot and score. So, it's going to be a real test for Duke. I think Duke is going to want to try to speed the game up. Houston is going to want to try to play the game, in the 60s, maybe the low 70s. Duke wants to play in the 80s or the 90s, so it's going to be a real interesting. It's going to be a real interesting test for those freshmen, right? Because those guys are going to be playing against guys that are 4 and 5 years older than them. And it's going to be a real test for Cooper. And we're going to see, how he's going to be able to handle physicality. And I think that that's going to give us a glimpse of, the kind of NBA physicality that he's going to see starting next year.
So Tom Haberstroh on the show yesterday, because I've heard you and some others make the comparison. And, I don't love the comp game because sometimes it puts unrealistic expectations in the minds of fans. And they're like, wait, why isn't he Kawhi Leonard? I like the Kawhi Leonard comp. Tom compared him to Kevin Garnett, because of his ability to guard and protect the rim and handle and do the things that a young KG could do coming out of high school. And he was Cooper's age when he entered the NBA. Didn't go to college. He was a high school kid who entered pro basketball. But, of course, Jazz fans curious about what they could see should Cooper Flagg be wearing a Jazz uniform. What do you make of the Garnett comp for Cooper Flagg?
I don't agree with a lot of what Tom Haberstroh says, but I agree with that 100%.
Okay.
But for a different reason. The comparison that I make to Garnett, when I first saw Cooper when he was 15, 16 years old, I said, he reminds me of a young Garnett. And me and my best friend Quincy, we both said that, he reminds us of a young Garnett. And the aspect that he reminds me of Garnett is the competitive aspect. Like, Cooper Flagg is a maniacal competitor. And he's the kind of guy to, if you get into a fight with him, he's going to come back with a bat. And if you beat him with a bat, he comes back with a knife. Like, he just never stops coming at you. And, that's what Garnett was. And for me, that's what Cooper Flagg is. They're both just really dogged, maniacal competitors. This is one of the reasons why I hate the Andre Karolinko comparison, because Cooper Flagg is a dog. Andre Karolinko is not a dog, and he never was. And in the competitive aspect, for me, reminds me of Garnett. Now, where I come up with the Kawhi Leonard aspect is, a 6'8", 6'9" small forward who, kind of affects every bit of basketball on both ends of the floor, but does it at his own pace, and you can't speed him up. And the way Cooper, off the dribble gets to his spots 12 to 18 feet from the basket reminds me of what Kawhi Leonard does. Like, Kawhi is trying to get to a spot 12 to 15 to 18 feet from the basket, and he's just going to shoot over you. And, that's some of what Cooper does offensively as well. So, you know, like you said, I mean, it's tough to like, you know, just go ahead and just throw comps out. But you know, the Kevin Garnett comp, you know, that's something that, you know, I've kind of had in my mind for a long time.
Do we have a emerging Tony Jones, Tom Haberstroh beef that we needed to discuss on the show?
Absolutely not. I love Tom.
Okay. All right.
It's like, you know, it's just healthy disagreement. Like, you know, I mean, me and him have always been cool. Like, I would never have beef with him. We're good.
Yeah, Staples, FCAC, you know, back in the day. We're all in one, you know, one big family here. All right, Tony, before I say you lose, you know, I was always more of like, I felt like I was one of the few people that covered the NBA that actually liked Carmelo Anthony. You know, the way people used to talk about him when, and first and foremost, he took on the challenge of New York, and they never got past the second round of the playoffs, but he was for about, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 years, probably the best pure scorer in pro basketball. And I always say, you know, the quicker you get to the international resume is not great news for a Hall of Fame candidate, but it's also not nothing. And Melo played in 4 Olympics, a bronze medal and 3 golds. I was at the preseason NIT tournament when he was a freshman at Syracuse, and I went, wait, who is that? They won a national championship, and he was a 6-time All-NBA player. And again, he took on the challenge of New York, which, of course, as a Knick fan, I always appreciated. So news comes down today that he is now going to be inducted to the Hall of Fame. I guess there's a debate. I don't see it. I just wanted your thoughts before I set you loose.
Was there a debate that he was going to be a Hall of Famer?
You know, folks on the interwebs and such.
Oh, that's silly. Yeah, he was always going to be a Hall of Famer. Your Hall of Fame induction is everything. You know, it's all encompassing. It's everything that you accomplish.
It is not the NBA Hall of Fame. I say it all the time.
Right. It's basketball Hall of Fame.
Yep.
So Carmelo Anthony had the best freshman one and done season ever in the history of college basketball. There's never been a one and done that has done more with less than Carmelo Anthony. And as you know, I'm a Georgetown fan. I hate Syracuse. And he took a team where his 3rd best player was Jerry McNamara, his 4th best player was Kef Duaney, and his 5th best player was J.B. McNamara, or whatever that big 7-foot doofy kid that was starting and he took them to the national championship. And obviously he had Hakeem Warwick, and Hakeem went on to be a longtime NBA guy. But he took that team to a national championship. That team was about the 15th best team in the country that year, and he took them to the national championship. You combine that with what he accomplished as a pro, and then you combine that to his international career, which is on the short list of one of the best international careers in basketball history. And, you know, he was a no doubt 100% cinch Hall of Famer on his first try. There's no question. It's the same thing with Rudy Gobert. Like, people are asking, well, is Rudy Gobert going to be a Hall of Famer? Of course he's going to be a Hall of Famer because he's one of the 3 or 4 best defensive players in NBA history, and he is one of the most decorated players in international history, you know, for his work with France. So, you know, Carmelo's resume is even better from an international sense than Rudy's resume. And you're just not going to find too many resumes internationally that are anywhere near as good as Carmelo Anthony. So he's a well-deserved first ballot Hall of Famer.
Well said. All right, TJ, what's the next assignment? I imagine you're on the Denver beat for a minute.
I am currently writing a column on the conundrum of Russell Westbrook.
Oh, wow. Well, yeah, last night was a good example after Jokic did Jokic things. All right, my guy, appreciate the time. Good stuff today on a Wednesday. Have a good week, okay?
Thanks, my guy. Appreciate you.
Tony Jones from The Athletic, brought to you today by IFA Country Stores. Any drive to the basket begins with the first step on the court. That's the ultimate power move. IFA's Step 1 crabgrass preventer and lawn food is the first choice to give your yard the healthy, thick green look you desire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their 18 Utah locations today. All right, we've got 1 hour in the books now. We've got 3 hours to go. Chris Camerani live in studio for an entire hour. Coming up next, right here on ESPN 700. All right, the last couple of hits with our next guest have gotten very loose, so we might get weird on a Wednesday afternoon. We have Andy Larson, who's going to join the program coming up a little bit, and then social media influencer Bill Oram stops by as well. But Chris Kamrani is live in studio. Can we start there? What's up with our boy?
Story time?
Right off the top, I want it.
Well,
this is Bill Oram story time.
I don't have the etymology of the conversation.
Okay.
But I was the first person to find it before it went viral.
Oh, didn't I send it?
No.
I didn't send it.
I found it, and I sent it to a group thread of Aaron Falk, Kyle Goon, Bill Oram, the original core four.
Okay.
Before Ennis Cantor, Gordon Hayward, Derek Favors, Alec Burks. There was the original
core
core
four.
four.
Oh, yeah.
And I sent it, and I said, Bill, you are in a bad way.
Yeah.
It's going to come down soon. And I didn't think it would get to the level that it did.
Yeah.
When I found it, it was the night before it really took off. And there was like 50, 60 retweets. By the next morning, it was like 900. And then I got to 1,000. And I was like, I mean, it's fitting. Our guy is a fan of the arts, of the theater. Huge musical guy.
Okay.
So it plays that he was in the background of, I'm trying to think, who was he behind? Was it like Jim Jackson?
I think it was Jim Jackson.
Okay.
It was definitely during.
I think it
one
was
of the March Madness games. Wasn't
Yeah,
it?
he was in Seattle for, I think it was Oregon, Arizona, if I'm not mistaken.
That sounds right.
So he was up there, and yeah, I mean, our guy, Class A ham, like Hall of Fame ham. So I'm excited. I'm excited to listen to his hit, and I'm excited to hear his explanations because, frankly, he has a lot of them to offer.
Well, but also because he's got, I guess, 2 different Instagram handles now. He's got Bill Oram.
Oh, I'm not aware of this.
Okay. See, because the thing is, outside of his viral moment is that his podcast partner who he does the podcast with, where he clearly was mouthing the name of the podcast in the background of the television shot. His social media feed, he's gone full-on influencer. He's gone full-on social media influencer. It wasn't just that snap. You don't follow Bill on Instagram?
I follow normal Bill on Instagram. I don't follow secondary Bill.
Oh, okay.
I have enough Bill on my phone that I don't need any more Bill on various social media platforms.
Porter, can you please save the sound that we can play for Bill? That CK has enough Bill on his phone. He doesn't need to follow him.
Yeah.
We're going to play that later.
Do you want another Bill story time?
I want all the Bill story time.
Bill is a lifelong, as am I, a lot of people are, a huge fan of the film Tombstone.
Okay.
Last night, we lost Val Kilmer. I think you could make an argument that Doc Holliday is one of the best performances ever in the history of film.
For sure.
Bill is lighting up the text thread because the New York Times obit did not list Tombstone originally, which is pretty egregious.
It is. Yeah.
But I wake up, because I'm an old man and I go to bed at 9:30.
You also have a child.
Several missed calls and voicemails of an apoplectic Bill Oram wondering why the obit is missing a Tombstone reference.
Wait, he actually called you to discuss this?
Oh, yeah. And did I pick up? No, because I was sleeping, because I'm a human being.
So let me ask you, what times did the calls spill in?
Oh, 10:30.
So are we talking maybe a couple of brown waters? Is Bill maybe getting a little loose on a Tuesday night?
No, I think he just gets really worked up over very trivial things.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah,
well, social media influencer Bill Oram, I don't know him the way you guys know him. I met him a couple times when he was here. I've always found him to be affable and funny, and
he's a
very good writer.
Great hang, great writer, great friend. I mean, Aaron and I were groomsmen in his wedding.
Oh,
so
cool.
He's one of our closest friends. And he's also a guy who never wants to leave the spotlight, whether it is a spotlight that he believes is currently shining on him. Don't know who might be pointing that spotlight in that direction, but if you catch my drift.
He likes to be front-facing.
Sure.
He wants
that's
to be
that's a good way of putting it.
Best Val Kilmer movie, is it Tombstone?
It's Tombstone. Yeah.
He was in a lot, Top Gun.
I mean, listen, man. You had Tony on last segment.
I did.
Tony's a huge Tombstone guy.
What?
Yeah.
I would not have expected that.
You got to mark that down for next time.
Willow, 1988.
Willow,
The Doors,
Thunderheart, The Saint,
The
Ghost in the Darkness.
He was in Heat. Phenomenal
Heat,
movie.
Yeah, I mean Heat's an A+. I was going to say an A+ Robin in movies. Ironically, he was Batman.
He was, but
No,
like
it's okay. No, that's okay.
But he's
Let's
at
not nitpick.
He's
Let's
at the
not-
bottom of the
let's-
list. Rest in peace.
No, he's
Val.
not. George Clooney is at the bottom
Oh,
of the list.
wait, or is it Ben Affleck?
I say George Clooney.
A lot of bad Batmans. I'll err towards Top Gun with a personal bias because a friend of mine and I, for Halloween one year, he went as Maverick and I went as Iceman. And I got a lot of traction off that costume. It turned out to be like my go-to.
Was it the whites? Like the
No, it was like
the jumpsuit,
the flight suit,
Okay, yeah,
right? But
gotcha.
I got the aviators.
Yeah,
I got the official. It probably cost me like $70,
Okay.
which is too much for a Halloween costume.
No, I don't think so.
But, as you get older, Halloween, you don't necessarily do the thing. It's great as a kid, and then it's great when you're in college. And then if you have
It's always fun. Man.
well,
Come on.
you have a group that throws a Halloween party
Yeah.
every year,
Yeah.
and that doesn't necessarily happen with my friends
Got
very
it.
often. We had one friend that used to do it all the time, Justin and his life partner Rose. We used to do that all the time. So whenever there actually was a Halloween party, I would wait, and then I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to be Iceman again. So I think for 7 of like 10 Halloweens, I was Iceman. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Top
You
Gun.
can be everybody's wingman anytime.
I can.
Most underrated Val Kilmer movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. Good movie.
An elite movie.
An elite movie. All right, so 2 weeks ago, we did Philip Seymour Hoffman content. Last week, it was Ben Stiller, right?
It was Stiller.
And
yeah.
then this week,
Yeah.
it's Val Kilmer. So let's transition from Val Kilmer into, you know what? We'll do the RSL stuff here first.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Pobs, my guy.
Yours.
Vibes high, my guy. Hopped on the show yesterday.
Wait, did he say the vibes are high?
No, I'm saying the vibes are
Okay,
high.
okay.
Look, the vibes are unequivocally low. I mean, Pablo's the coach. He's not going to run his roster down. He's not going to. But essentially, he did admit, he talked about a lineup they might use against LA with what he characterized as a false 9 because they don't have anything on the roster. And every time I have one of these guys on, or if I talk to him off air, I'm like, dude, what's the deal? And tomorrow, Chris, it'll be 3 weeks before the primary transfer window closes.
Yeah.
And you know this as well as anybody. You're good to actually remind us. In soccer, you could come to an agreement for a player, and then visa issues, paperwork, red tape, and then suddenly a month goes by, he's not here. We don't have time for that now. So what do you make of where we find it? Do you think this is because of the ownership transition, that they haven't been able to get any signings across the line?
I don't know if it's because of the transition. I think it probably has played a role. These are questions that previous ownership or incoming ownership need to address head on. But the reality is RSL had an offseason from hell, and a lot of things that normally wouldn't happen happened. And I know fans don't want to hear excuses, and frankly, they don't deserve to hear them, but that is the reality. The Chicho thing went south. The pseudo replacement went south. They came into, I think ultimately when you look back on the season, depending on whether or not they can, recenter themselves, the fact that they went into CONCACAF for the first time in 7 years, so undermanned, I think is
Highly disappointing.
disappointing. And this was the original MLS team in the quote unquote modern era in the last 15 years that really went on a run.
Yeah.
So I think there was a lot of pride in the community and the fan base about what RSL means and its history in that competition, and the fact that they went out to a team that they shouldn't have lost to, in the manner that they lost, the fact that they don't have enough talent on the roster, you can understand where the fan base ire is coming from. But like you said, we're 3 weeks away. It's called an ITC, Spence. I think it's an international transfer certificate or something that every player needs to get once all the documents are signed. But with each passing day, the more time this takes, the more it's the ball is being kicked down the road, so to speak. Because if this player or players come in from Europe or South America or whatever continent, they're going to come in. They're going to have to get acclimatized to a team that they don't know. They're going to have to get used to travel. That is going to be undoubtedly more arduous than they've ever faced before. A new league, an improving league, and they're going to be counted upon to kind of serve as life raft, so to speak, for a season that could go south really quickly. And I don't know if that's fair to the caliber of player that it sounds like RSL is trying to bring in.
Well, it's getting late early. I mean, that's the problem. Like, if you combine the CONCACAF Champions Cup experience in their MLS games, they've played 8 games, and they've scored 6 goals. Like, that's pathetic. It's anemic. They have the 3rd worst goal differential in all of MLS already. Ironically enough, the Galaxy are off to the worst start in the history of their organization. Now, they've got the CONCACAF Champions Cup, too, that they're playing in right now. They lose the Ricky Pooch kid. Pablo was talking about that. So hopefully they can get a result coming up over the weekend. But if they don't make any moves, any sort of result in the meantime, I think is going to be met with a collective like, okay, great, but what's next? Because honestly, Chris, this is as bad as it's been in a while. It's not just that they're not winning. It's not just that they're not scoring. It's a boring product right now. If I'm an RSL fan, I'm fed up, I'm frustrated, and my patience is wearing thin, even though it's only April.
It's a boring product, and I feel like the latest rendition of an ownership transfer is going to render this season a moot season.
Oh, really?
I think it's going to be a lost season.
Okay.
I honestly do. I don't think unless if and when the Miller Group finalizes its purchase, if they, at their, introductory press conference say we're going to give Kurt and his staff 10 to 15 million this summer transfer window, we'll be having a different discussion then. But if they're not, I just don't see the amount of talent on the roster or potentially coming in that's going to change anything.
Good point. And I don't have any inside information about what that will look like once this ownership transfer takes place. And for the listeners that are unfamiliar, Sportico last week, followed up by some good reporting from the Trib, indicated that the Blitzer Group and Ryan Smith, Arctos Partners, in conversations with the Miller family to transfer ownership of RSL. I don't know what the final story will look like. My guess is Ryan Smith is going to be out entirely. I don't think he's going to have any involvement with RSL. Quite frankly, I don't think he wants to. I think he's busy with his basketball, NHL, and the film festival.
You didn't read our reporting at The Athletic?
I always read your reporting at The Athletic. I'm trying to credit the people that didn't Sportico break it first?
Sportico broke it.
Okay.
But over the weekend, Paul Tenorio and myself.
I love Paul.
Yeah.
Wait, you were part of this?
Yeah.
I'm so sick of you writing and not telling me because you don't tweet about it anymore.
Well, we can boom a little bit. I'm gonna boom a little bit on your show for the people who always accuse me of making the show too woke. Just because it's not on social media doesn't mean it's not out there.
I know.
And I know social media is an easy third-party app to distill what you want at the levels that make it so much more digestible. But the reality is you can go to websites like it's 2008, 2009. Might take a little more time. And I'm sorry that I no longer post too often on the Hellscape. But
can you send out the work? I do that still. I don't tweet, but I still tweet out like the shows.
Okay.
That's all. Okay. All right. I'm looking now. I'm going to pull it up. Shout out to The Athletic because I'm a big Paul Tenorio fan, friend of the program. So what did you uncover? Like, do you have any information as far as how this is going to look when it's done?
So David Blitzer will be involved still. The Millers will be the majority ownership group, and Ryan Smith will no longer be involved going forward.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And that was kind of my sense, because, again, I don't think Ryan gives a rip, and that's fine. And I do think you want Blitzer involved because I think you want to maintain, the Blitzer umbrella group relationship. I do think that's beneficial. But when it comes to the Millers' financial commitment here, like I've heard a lot of people say, well, they never paid luxury tax for the Jazz. To pay luxury tax in the NBA, your payroll has to be like $190 million. They've got 10 to 15 mil to give this club to bring in a couple of players. Like I find the criticisms that they've received because their decision to never go into luxury tax in the NBA a false equivalency to what they could do for MLS. You don't need a $190 million payroll.
So there's a quote in that story.
You're going to make me look
Why do you read it for the listeners of the drive?
Okay. Well,
I was told by a source with direct knowledge of the situation regarding what the future ownership group could potentially invest in. And there's a quote in that story that directly addresses such topic.
Give me a second. Why is
I'm putting my guy on the spot
Well, no, like
on live radio.
Why doesn't the Athletic website just feed me what I want? Fix your algorithm.
Well,
Like,
do you have
I found it.
Do you have RSL as one of the teams that
I
you
do,
follow?
and usually all of your stuff pops up because I have it. All right, we pull up the MLS. Here we go. Paul Tenorio, Christopher Camerani. Here's the piece. Okay, so go to don't go to Chris's Twitter page. Just go to the Athletic, search Real Salt Lake, I guess. Well, now I've got to find the quote. Okay,
I mean it's not that far down. Do you want me to help you out?
Majority both are.
It's about the fifth graph.
Quote, they wouldn't be doing this if they didn't have every intention to compete at the highest level. RSL has always been really competitive, and yet over the years, they've just needed somebody that can steward that franchise and invest in it, according to a source.
Yep.
Do I know who the source is?
That was a direct question of are the Millers going to invest the significant financial means necessary in order for RSL to keep up in the current landscape of MLS?
So I would assume that for RSL fans, that should be taken as a positive piece of news.
And it should be. But again, my fear is we're already first week of April.
Yeah.
I understand that this season is always a tremendously ridiculous slog. It takes so long because that's the way MLS goes. But as we've talked about ad nauseum over the years, it is very hard for talented players to come in from overseas, whether it's South America, Africa, Europe, wherever, Antarctica, and to make a significant impact once boots hit the ground. I mean, I was warning you and your listeners last summer. I was like, Diogo Gonçalves, great role player at Copenhagen, but he was a great role player on a decent team in Europe. He has proven to be not the type of guy that can lead a team in MLS. That's how good the quality has improved in MLS so quickly.
Do you have any, and you're right, I mean, I don't know most of the players that have been transferred in, but it seems like every time I check MLS website and you get the tracking of the transfers, just the pure amount of money that's being spent on new talent by most of these clubs across the landscape of the league indicate that RSL has to have somebody that will step up and spend. But I just go back to the whole narrative like, hey, the Millers didn't spend on the Jazz. Well, like, it's a much different league. You don't need to spend that much money. As far as, because this does appear as a result of valuations of NWSL franchises to be a bit of a cash grab for either Ryan or Blitzer or both. Do you have any idea what sort of?
I was told that this is not that.
It's not that.
No.
So simply Ryan probably just doesn't want to be involved. And Blitz, my guy Blitz,
yours,
probably wants a local partner that is more invested and present than Ryan has been. Is that fair to say?
Look at you, man.
I'm just,
just riffing.
I'm just, looking at the great reporting from my friends at The Athletic.
Thank you. I mean, we go from Tombstone to Bill Oram to, great reporting.
There we go. All right, so I guess I'll bottom line it. Do you think Kurt, Jason, Tony, Pablo, Little Birdie, they've all told me 2 players on the way. Do you think we're going to hear that announcement prior to April 23rd?
I think we will. But again, I would caution fans to temper expectations because I am operating under the assumption / reality that RSL is not going to be spending 7 figures on individual talents. Now, transfer figures for 2 players could, stretch beyond 7 figures. But again, we're talking about a league now where some teams are spending $4 to $5 million on role players in this league, man. And remember, Chicho Arango's $6 million transfer a couple years ago was a club record. So for RSL to get back in the thick of things, they're going to have to spend money, bottom line.
Yeah, there's no other way around that. All right, so any context as to why the Galaxy have been bad? Is Ricky Pooch that important?
I mean, he's a Barcelona kid. I mean, he played with Messi at Barcelona. He was a young member of the Barcelona heyday with all those star players.
A guy Iniesta.
Yeah.
My guy.
Xavi. Yeah.
Oh, I played with them.
Yeah, I know you did.
FIFA. They were my jam.
I know you did. But he tore his ACL, and late last year, I think during the playoffs or right before. So I mean, that's generally for soccer players 9 to 12 months. Brought in some decent players. I mean, they brought in a guy who scores a bunch of goals in MLS and Christian Ramirez, the type of player that RSL probably should have acquired in the offseason when everything went south in order to prove as a stopgap for whoever comes in as the 9. But they beat Herediano.
Okay.
So which something that RSL could not do.
No, you should beat Arellano. Didn't RSL try to bridge the gap with that dude who was like, I'm not living in Salt Lake? I mean, at least they made an attempt.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But once that went south, you have all the GAM.
What about the TAM?
GAM.
TAM and the GAM.
Just throw it all at somebody in the meantime.
Fair enough. All right, we'll switch gears. Coming up on the other side, Chris Camerani live in studio, brought to you by our good friends at Prize Picks. Speaking of both the disdain that Chris and I have when it comes to posting on social media, well, that's going to change for a little bit because I'm going to start posting my picks on Prize Picks. I'll do it mostly on my Instagram page because I kind of stay off of Twitter. So Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. All you do is pick more or less on 2 players at least for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. You can run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Springtime is here. Baseball season underway. Don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your Prize Picks lineup. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs, take your pick of more or less for your shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash today. On Prize Picks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports. Combine your favorite baseball players with players from basketball, hockey, esports, and much more. Download that Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 at checkout. You get $50 when you play that first $5 bet. You do not even have to win the bet to get the $50. It is on the house. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game all season long. More with CK coming up next right here on ESPN 700. Friday night, hip-hop night at the Green Room. Come hang out with us. That's right down your alley, CK. Come on, Friday night, hip-hop room, hip-hop night at the Green Room.
Say hip-hop room.
Hip-hop night at the Green Room is how I should put that.
Right.
We got a DJ. He rocks only 90s hip-hop. It's phenomenally exciting. You get to see Nate Bench fall asleep at a table. The whole thing is great.
It's like Horatio Sands. Only 80s Joel.
Only 80s Joel, sir. Exclusively 80s Joel. All right, Chris. Some breaking news out of the transfer portal.
Oh, yeah?
Utah basketball.
Riveting.
Well, your guy over here, okay, no big deal. Vegas, college basketball crown.
That's right.
Boots on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, so went to Vegas for the college basketball crown. It lasted for one afternoon. I did 2.5 hours of live radio. Okay, that was my Vegas trip. Went and got some Mexican afterwards, threw some cards, little blackjack, won $200, walked away like an adult, was in bed by 10. You would have been proud. Old Spence back in the day is like, oh, you won 200? Go throw that in the dollar slots and see if you can win an extra $500 or $600. But grinded on the blackjack table for about 2.5 hours and feel like I had my fill. As soon as I went up 200, boom, your boy was in bed. So a little credit here, please.
Did you fly or drive?
Doesn't matter. Why is that relevant?
Just fascinating. I'm a journalist. I got to ask pertinent questions.
Upgraded on the way back.
Okay, my guy. Mexican food in Vegas.
Well, I was staying at just the
Was it T-Mobile?
It was MGM Garden Grand Arena, but I was staying at the Silverton Lodge and Resort, which is off the Strip.
Okay.
It's for old school Vegas heads like me.
Yeah.
There's the lobby, and then to the right, there's a Bass Pro Fishing Shop. Okay, so that's what we're working with. And after the game and after my show, I wasn't going to hit the Strip. I had my radio equipment because I'm a one-man show. Nobody respects the grind, but I had to carry it all.
The heavy suitcase.
The heavy suitcase,
Yeah.
the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because, for me, it is about the grind. It's about the work. That's what I'm about.
Sure.
So head back to the hotel. No, it's like 7:30. I'm like, grab a shower. There's a little Mexican cantina. You can't make bad tacos. You're going to, find.
What'd you get?
Got a burrito taco.
Okay.
I got a crispy chicken taco and a fish taco and rice and beans, 3 tacos. Then, boom, hit the tables at Silverton because you could find $5 and $10 minimum tables. I'm not trying to get crazy
That's
here.
great.
Couple hours, win a couple $100, and your boy goes to bed. I just want a little credit.
Well, I'm trying to think how long ago it was. So it was the year my son was born when we went golfing. And I went up like $400
In Mesquite?
In Mesquite.
Yeah.
Video roulette.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't walk away.
Oh, that's shocking about you. You seem like the walk-away type of guy.
I got like the scratch, man. I was like, I want to see how far this can go.
Yeah.
And
didn't you throw 100 on
black?
And you won.
Yeah.
And then you parlayed that into a couple hundred more, and then you lost it all.
Yeah.
That's the. You got to know when to hold him, man. Know when to fold him.
That was when it was like 45 degrees and we were all getting hypothermia.
Yes, we had planned this great golf trip, and remember, I tried to get everybody to stay out on the course to golf, and like you guys,
and
you're
everyone
crazy.
was like, no.
Yeah, so we left.
Yeah,
went to the casino, went on a heater.
Yeah,
you remember my heater?
I remember you stayed, and everyone else went home because you were on a heater.
Travis stayed with me.
Okay.
And Nate Bench was my wingman as I'm taking this casino for literally $2,500 on the blackjack table.
Yeah.
And I wanted to keep going, but Trav was like, hey, we got to go.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ride my heater out. But I was able to take a little cash.
We had to go eat some pizza in St. George.
We did. Not a real place. Anyway, so Utah men's basketball season comes to a close. Now the Alex Jensen era officially begins. I'm not saying that Craig Smith didn't like Keanu Dawes, but for whatever reason, Josh Eiler played him more. And in the 7 games Josh coached, Keanu Dawes had 5 double-doubles. So part of me, and I still kind of feel this way, like I don't know if Alex is going to hire any of the assistant coaches that are on staff right now to coach with him. And I wondered whether or not he wanted any of the players back, just based off the idea of him starting over. Like this is now the Alex Jensen era. We've begun. Clean slate, blank canvas, paint your own picture. But Keanu Dawes has withdrawn from the transfer portal, and he's going to come back to play for the U. So there's one player that AJ clearly has been front-facing about trying to get back, and Keanu Dawes is going to come play for him.
If you're going to contend in the Big 12, and by contend I mean top 6 finish, how many players do you need that are going to be better than Keanu Dawes?
What a great question. You are good at this.
I'd say minimum
at
2.
least 2, if not, I would say more. Keanu Dawes probably on Houston. I don't know that he even plays for Houston. Does he play for BYU? I mean, he's a Big 12 athlete, and there were a lot of games this year where Utah didn't have the talent, the speed, or the strength that the other teams had. Keanu looked like he belonged. Like, of all the players, I think Ezra Asar would be a guy you want back. But of all the players that could potentially come back, I would say Jake Wallin, Keanu Dawes, and Ezra Asar, the three that you look at.
Out of those three guys, can any of them shoot the three reliably?
Jake showed the ability to down the stretch. Ez can't shoot it from the outside at all. He's more of like an old school Adrian Dantley post player, footwork, right? Finish with both hands.
Yeah, I mean, the few games that I watched, he could handle it pretty well.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Yeah.
But your point is well taken. Like, the top-end talent has to be found, and I don't know what to expect year one because we have no idea who's going to play for the team. But, I think this idea that Alex was simply just going to maybe clean slate it, maybe it's not accurate. Maybe he is going to try to get some of these guys back.
Well, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like in college basketball, generally the teams that are successful and are able to make deep runs have one or two really good guards that Utah hasn't had in God knows how long. Right? I mean,
DeLon.
DeLon.
Well, Davon last year, but yeah, you're right. You're right.
No, man. I'm talking about guys that can take over games. Like, and I know I'm not going to say, not going to compare like the Alabama kid, like Sears.
Yeah.
But somebody of that ilk, or even like a big wing player guard who can handle Richie Saunders. When was the last time Utah had one of those players?
The instant answer is Kuzma and DeLon. Those are the names.
But Kuzma wasn't even that good at Utah.
Yeah, he
was like
better
the third
pro.
best. He was the third best player on that team.
Better pro than a college player. Larry caught a little flack for that when Kuz went to the league and started really playing well. It's like, wait, what happened here? I would say DeLon Wright is probably the last, and because he's also a pro and he's been a decade, like he's got a pension, decade-long NBA guy.
But we're talking about a guy who played here 10 years ago.
Right.
That's how long it's been.
Right.
And like I know, fans are stoked that Keanu Dawes is coming back, but he's still a guy that averaged at the end of the day like 9 points a game.
Yeah.
And I know he had the double-doubles, but how many double-doubles came against good teams? I'm trying to remember the
He had one against Arizona.
Okay.
At McHale, but they lost by 30.
Okay.
He was like the only player that looked like he belonged.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that, like, I don't know if you need a quote-unquote foundation.
Okay.
Like, I think Keanu can be part of the next generation, but, like, they're down bad, man. They have to figure out who can come in and play well because, frankly, they haven't had good players for a very long time.
Yeah, and they haven't had top-end talent, nor have they had great depth. Like, whenever I heard people this year be like, hey, Utah's depth is pretty good. Like, what? No, it's not. And, like, they've got a grip of, like, fine players, not top-end players. Ezra at times showed the ability to take over games. He was great against BYU here in Salt Lake when Utah actually beat them. Gabe was a great shooter. The splits were down this year, but he's not a ball-in-hand guy. No, make no mistake. Alex, Coach Joe, your guy, Wes Wilcox, the GM, they've got a grip of work to do. And I think the reality is to expect them to be anything. Because when you say top 6 in the Big 12, what you're saying is you are an NCAA tournament team.
Yeah.
Top 7 or 8 in the Big 12 when the Big 12 was the best conference in the country. That was the SEC this year. But a typical Big 12 year, you're top 8, you're probably going to the tournament. And I don't think that's realistic to expect next year.
No, I don't either. Unless, again, and maybe I'm barking up the wrong tree here, but like if you can find 2 really good scorers, backcourt guys, like I just haven't seen it at that school for so long, man. Like I'm talking about, listen, I went to school when Johnny Bryant was there. Tyler Kepke.
Johnny was a good player.
Carlin Brown.
There's a player.
Who ended up at Colorado.
Jiggy Watkins, if you want to get weird.
Hey. So, my point is you have to go out, and I understand fans are enamored by the idea of a Keanu Dawes who can live above the rim and has these dunks, but like at the end of the day, man, you need multiple players who can change a game with the ball in their hands, either through dictating pace, shooting the ball or passing the ball. And Utah simply hasn't had that for way too long.
When you talk to your peeps, the CK ecosystem,
I don't have many running Utes in my peeps.
Well, I'm not going Utes here.
Okay.
We're this is a transition time.
I like this.
Okay. Little, not non sequitur entirely, but when you kick the tires with your friends or family members that really watch sports, enjoy sports, and you ask them about the Utah Jazz, what do they say to you?
I think it's kind of a nothing. I don't think like they're upset. I think they're smart enough.
Apathetic?
Not even apathetic. I mean, I think this is a avenue they should have wandered down 2 years ago. So basically, it's 2 years delayed. And if you were able to do that 2 years ago and then land Victor Wembanyama, you're probably not in this position. Well, maybe you're still in a position to add Cooper Flag. Who knows? The Spurs managed to land a number 1 overall pick randomly once every 15 to 20 years.
Yep.
But I would just say they are probably invested in their secondary or tertiary sports teams way more, and they're just waiting. Basically, it's waiting for them to be good again.
Yeah, and but the rough piece of news is they're not going to, even if they get Cooper Flag, they're not going to be good again for a long time. I do think reality is set in down there with certain people that may not operate in reality all the time, and they've kind of taken their medicine and they've realized, okay, well, now we need to start. But this narrative that they've been propagating through certain media outlets that the rebuild hasn't begun yet because they've been tearing down for 3 years. As a journalist, okay? Jimmy Walker over here. That is what you are, okay?
Need a cigar and a fedora.
Do you like a good cigar?
No, God, no.
Oh, so good. But if you got that call, we're like, hey, Chris, I want you to write a piece about the fact that we are not rebuilding yet. We have been tearing down for 3 years, and we want you to use that term to let our fans know that the rebuild starts now. Because when I read that, I just went, you have got to be kidding me.
I don't know what you're talking about, but that's cool.
That's the narrative that's going around.
Got it.
That they have not started rebuilding because they needed 3 years to tear down. That's what they're trying to get out.
This is just my totally uninformed opinion. It was always going to be difficult to sell to a very proud fan base who's historically paid money and rooted very hard for their professional basketball team to support straight up losing. This is not a Jazz-specific problem. This is an NBA problem.
Yes, it is.
The Athletic,
Yes, it is.
the NBA vertical at The Athletic is currently doing a series on the issues surrounding NBA fandom. David Aldrich had a great story this week.
It was really good because I read The Athletic.
Yeah.
Because David Aldrich tweets out his pieces.
DA.
My guy.
Yeah.
Hall of Famer. Is it Vorkunov?
Yeah, Mike Vorkunov.
Great piece up on some solutions for tanking. Because to your point, it should be underscored, this is not a Jazz problem. This is a pro basketball problem.
And I think that's led to the state of apathy as it pertains to NBA fandom as a whole. And I think maybe the Luka trade was like another dagger in the back where it's like, come on, guys. Like, really, we're doing this? But I just, out of the people that I know, the NBA fandom is leaving adults in my friend group at my age, near 40, at a much more rapid pace than anything else.
I agree with that.
Much more than football or soccer.
No, I agree with that. And there's data that indicates. Now, I always bring this up because if you're an NBA apologist, you will talk about their international revenue streams that mitigate the lack of domestic interest, which is why they're able to sign a $72 billion television deal. The Luka trade especially was wild because he is a global superstar. He's a guy that people watch across the world. And you trade him at the age of 25, almost 2 years younger than Trevin now. And what you do is you reset the Lakers now. When LeBron is done, you reset them for a decade. That's why I think fans around the league, it's like, dude, what's the point? If the Lakers can go from Kareem and Magic to Shaq and Kobe to LeBron and now Luka, like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
You know, how can we keep up?
Yeah. I mean, that I'd wonder how many teams have won an NBA championship in the last, 20 years. It's got to be less than 10.
Well, the good news about that point, if you're a Jazz fan, is we have Milwaukee with Giannis. We have Denver with Jokic. And
Are those aberrations? Are those one-offs? Is Giannis going to stay in Milwaukee?
Fair question, and it does appear to be at this point a one-off because Denver is Andrew Lucking Nikola Jokic. Like, they are wasting. He went 61-10-10 last night, and they lost because Russell Westbrook is such an idiot.
It's funny you say Andrew Luck because Nikola Jokic strikes me as the type of guy that will one day wake up and be like, I'm good.
I'm going to
go back.
race my horses.
I'm going to go back to the horses.
Yeah,
Seriously.
Why not?
Like that is a pretty spot on analogy. But yeah, I mean, it takes way too long in this league to build something even somewhat formidable if you're not in a quote unquote major market.
How pumped are you for the Masters?
Is Tiger playing?
He is not. He ripped his Achilles apart.
Then I'm out.
And then posted on social media that he's dating the ex-wife of Donald Trump Jr. and then asked for privacy.
What?
Do you not know about any of this?
Bro.
You didn't see Tiger's media
I did not.
post.
I swear to God, I did not.
Is it, Porter, is it Laura Trump? What's her name?
No, but it's
It's something Trump. It's Donald Trump Jr.'s ex, which is quite an ex to decide to go after if you're Tiger Woods. So there were these rumors that Tiger Woods is dating Trump Jr.'s ex-wife. And then our guy, Tiger Eldrick, posts on Instagram and Twitter a picture of the two of them saying, it's official, love is in the air, and please respect my privacy. If you want your privacy respected, maybe just don't post. That's just me.
Who's going to win?
The Masters?
Yeah.
I would say...
Are the live guys allowed to participate
some
in this?
of them.
Okay.
I would go Scheffler. I think he's trending up. Rory does not play well at Augusta.
Yeah.
You know that.
I know who's going to win.
Who's going to win?
Dark horse. You ready?
Yeah, let's bring it.
Colin Morikawa.
Look at that.
Yeah.
Is that the only golfer you could name off the top of your head?
You named the other two already.
Okay, fair enough. You could name more. We don't need to do that today. I'm just saying you can name more. All right, CK, a few minutes left here. I know you know this, but some exciting news.
Yeah.
Saturday morning's Utah football scrimmage has been opened for public consumption, and the media is allowed to attend. So I will see you there.
Are you going to be tweeting?
We're not allowed. You cannot tweet. You cannot post. You cannot post videos. But at least we can go watch it. So I would imagine your Saturday will look like this: Utah spring football scrimmage, 10 a.m. RSL LA 2:30.
Ooh.
Final Four action after that. Am I tracking here?
It's great. Now, you know me, and my first move would be to look at the forecast. And I think
Saturday's okay.
Okay, but
it's
at
not
10
awesome.
but at 10 a.m.
I'm going to do it right now.
I'm thinking 10 a.m. Saturday, probably around 38, 39 degrees.
The high is 49. Media box, bro. Sixth floor.
Oh, you want the bird's eye view? You want the scheme?
That's the only option. I mean, I'll wait for the all
the
22 film.
The 12 personnel is dwindling in the Utah football program.
You watch your mouth. You know how we feel about 12 personnel on the drive.
I will be watching the RSL match, and I will be probably making dinner around the time the Final Four starts. But I am interested to watch that Duke-Houston game.
Okay. Well, spring football.
Yeah. Who's turning heads?
Nate Johnson's fast.
Is he?
He's back.
All right.
There's a third-string freshman quarterback Kyle likes. Wayshawn Parker, running back, is making waves. Come on, man. You used to cover this all the time. So
who's catching the balls?
Kyle himself, by the way, yesterday, media availability. He said he was talking about the running backs looking good, quarterbacks, all the things that Kyle says, and then admitted, like, we are figuring it out, a wide receiver. I think Utah themselves don't know what that's going to look like.
If you're Utah, like, why not carve out, like, a significant amount of NIL and just overpay a guy to get here?
Yeah.
Seriously, I mean, the last time they had a 1,000-yard receiver, your guy, Drez Anderson, in 2010 or 11.
Dirty Drez, yeah.
Are you kidding me,
I know,
man?
it's
Come
wild.
on. So, I know, great offensive line. Trying to think who else is back. The Barton kid's back. Teo Johnson, Smith Snowden. They got it. They got some bones. I know everyone's going to be on the Devin Dampier for Heisman, train real fast.
All right. Calm down. Let's bring it. Porter, who's playing wide receiver?
Yeah. Porter, who's your starters today?
Who we got?
I mean, as you said, Kyle himself said that they're figuring out. It's going to be, and I think that we'll maybe have a obviously a better idea Saturday, but there's going to be a legitimate tryout for the wide receiver position. I don't think that's a great place to be. Yeah. There's a few transfers coming in. There's a few guys that have been with Jason Beck and with Devin Dampier in the past, which I think are probably going to be kind of his comfort valves.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be got by committee between 6-7 guys.
So let's see here as we pull up the two deep in real time to figure out who these wide receivers are.
You guys got the spring football two deep pulled up? Look at you.
Mostly just the roster. I still am kind of stuck on you saying the 12 personnel as a team is a thing of the past. I will not accept that. We want 12 and 13 personnel. Creed
14th.
Whittemore, a transfer who looks like Britton Covey.
Okay.
Otto Tia.
They have a kid. Who was the kid who had a good game against UCF in the last game of the year? Williamson?
Justin Stevenson.
Zion
Williamson?
No, not Zion Williamson.
Williams, not
Zion.
Williamson.
Bring Zion Williamson in to play wide receiver.
It's like Zach Williams?
Cameron Mitchell, Rayshawn Glover. They got a lot of white wide receivers. This is a problem. They've got 5 of them.
It's not a problem.
Oh, it's a problem.
No, it's not.
You don't want whites playing wide receiver. What are you, crazy?
That guy's going to get canceled.
I'm not going to get canceled. Name a great white wide receiver right now? Do
Britton
not say
Covey.
Steve Largent.
I will say the Creed Whitmore kid has made some plays at spring. The media viewings that we've seen so far, they have been mentioning one Creed Whitmore as a guy that's making some plays out there.
All right. So there you go. There's your answer.
Okay. I'll see you there.
Yeah. I don't know much about any of these players.
Nobody does.
We
So
need-
I would caution all of your listeners who are, waiting at bated breath for the Utah football season to start. Do not believe anything anybody says because we don't know anything until the first game of the season.
Peyton Rice, Junior Coughlin, Matt Clark,
I have not heard of any of these people.
Luca Caldarella, and Ryan Davis.
There's who's
Krieger Whittemore. They have 6 white wide receivers. What are we
who's
doing?
Williams? Look up Williams.
I'm not seeing him.
He had a good game against UCF, the last game of the year. As a freshman,
I'm honestly not seeing him.
maybe he went into the transfer portal.
You never know. And, I guess that's the deal. All right. You used to cover spring football all the time. What do you think is real that we can actually talk about? Anything at all?
No. Unless they allow everybody to play.
What kind of Xbox do you have?
Oh, I have the old Xbox One. It is dying at a rapid rate. It's accumulating dust at a frighteningly fast level.
I have bad news because I also have a dated Xbox. You can't play any of the new games unless you have like a X or an S.
Yep.
I went to download the new PGA game, and it's like, hey, your Xbox is too old. You have to buy a new
You
one.
wanted to play with Tiger?
No, I create my own character.
Oh, do you?
Oh, yeah. My
What clubs
name.
do you use?
All the clubs.
All the clubs?
Yeah, you need to use all the clubs.
But do you use your real clubs?
Oh, like the same brand?
Yeah. Are you
No.
you Titleist guy?
Sub 70 irons.
Sub 70.
Ping driver and woods.
Okay.
And I just bought a tailor-made putter. The same putter that Scotty Scheffler uses.
What about do you have a chutter?
I do not, because those are illegal.
Are they?
I'm talking to you, Jay Drew, you cheater.
Ooh.
Shows up to media tournaments with those things. You can't use them.
Okay.
Let's get you out to a media tournament this year.
Can I dress the way I normally dress?
Probably not.
And then I'm out.
Okay, fair enough. All right, anything you have coming up that you will not, share with us publicly?
No,
then
I just want your reader or your listeners to understand that just because it's on social media doesn't mean it's out there.
You're
It's
not
not
wrong.
out there.
You're not wrong. I just got in the habit of checking your feed for your pieces because then I would share them.
So, for example, I'm going to, our limited time left, I'm going to use my alma mater, the Salt Lake Tribune, as a great example. Today, Kevin Reynolds and Jason Patacchio had a great story on Keanu Tanavasa, who they talked to, and they talked to his dad about the process of leaving Utah. And they were both extremely transparent about what went down and explained more in detail than they really needed to. My fear is that in the world of what people are refreshing, well, I know it's not a fear, links are not prioritized compared to other things, and that kind of stuff, that important, like actual sports journalism in this market is not getting the eyes that it deserves because people no longer are getting it, through their hellscapes of what it used to be known as Twitter, or they just don't go searching for it. And I know there are lots of people who have preconceived notions about what some media outlets represent. I would tell you all to grow up, and when there's something good out there and it's not content, ladies and gentlemen, it is a story, read it, appreciate it, and then move on.
Mic drop. And neither Jason or Kevin tweeted it out. So your point stands. sltrib.com.
Good kids.
All right, getting woke. 10 the hour, CK. Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks, man.
Christopher Kamrani brought to you today by our friends over the Salt Lake Bees. Salt Lake Bees have a new hive. Join us for opening week, April 8th through the 13th, as we kick off our inaugural season at the ballpark at America First Square in South Jordan. Every game will feature exciting giveaways, so don't miss out. CK will be there for opening night, so you guys should as well. You can experience the thrill of America's favorite pastime and join us this season for professional baseball, family-friendly entertainment, and unforgettable memories. Giveaways include pennants, T-shirts, beanies, and more on every night of the first homestand. Single-game tickets are now on sale. Visit slbees.com for more information. This season, the Bees are going to feature firework and drone nights throughout the year, brunch every Sunday home game, Bark in the Park night where you can bring your dog to the game, a Superman-themed night, a cowboy-themed weekend. The ballpark at America First Square is designed for year-long use. Coming soon, a brand-new Bees team store is going to be open all year. Sites can also have megaplex theaters that includes movies, bowling, arcade, and dining, restaurants, and a concert stage. The Salt Lake Bees are dedicated to providing premium experience with wallet-friendly ticket pricing. The privately financed stadium has a capacity of 8,000 fans and offers open lawn premium club and field-level seating options. There's going to be a ticket and a seat for every type of fan. The new amenities put the ballpark at America First Square on par with any other minor league baseball facility and also many Major League Baseball facilities. Fan amenities include a locally inspired concessions and grab-and-go market using smart technology, alcohol-free family zones, spectacular views of the Wasatch Mountains, improved transportation access to the ballpark, more parking, lower cost for parking, new track stop at center field for America First Square, increased walkability, curated game day experience for fans at America First Square, comfortable seats, an expansive video board, premium seating options, fans seated behind home plate in the new field suites will be closer to the batter than the pitcher. Visit slbees.com to get your tickets and come see the Bees. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. Andy Larson, Bill Oram. That's your 4 o'clock hour of the program on a Wednesday, so keep it right here on ESPN 700. Should you attend Hip Hop Night at the Green Room on Friday nights, you might see our next guest posted up working on a column about the Utah Jazz. Andy Larson on a Wednesday afternoon. Andy, happy Wednesday, buddy. How we doing?
I'm doing well. Where would we see you on that same night, for example?
Well, sometimes there, but not working, just hanging out, and not being compared to one Elon Musk. I wonder how that landed with you.
You know, you just got to take the hate and keep on going.
You could spin that as if it was not negative. I mean, if you wanted to take that route.
Yeah, you know, maybe. Look, I had a jazz column to get out, so I was in my own world trying to do my job. Yeah.
I respect the grind. Where is your preferred spot to get the work done? Because you frequent quite a few different locations, yeah.
That's true. You know, and honestly, like most of the time, you know, I'm at home and have watched the game and just do it right after either from the road, right at the game at the arena, or in front of my TV. But you know, then it depends if it's a nice day. If it's a nice day, I'll go out to the Brickyard Bar, sit out on the patio, and do a little bit of typing. You know, but you know, I used to have a really solid spot in Sugar House and Hopkins, but now their drinks are too expensive, and heck, their menu's too expensive. So I don't know about that. But yeah, it's you know, I would say that it's fun to be able to work from not just the office 5 days a week. We'll put it that way.
Hopkins is sold out, huh? That's too bad.
I mean, it's fine. It's still like a good place to be. It's just you're not going to leave there without spending $20 on food, and anyway, it's a lot.
Fair enough. All right, Isaiah Collier breaks John Stockton's rookie assist record. Impressive, or just kind of you know, like John, I think, played 18 minutes a night as a rookie, had 5 starts. Put this into context, because whenever you see a headline that says a player breaks an assist record that was once held by the greatest assist guard in the history of pro basketball, John Stockton, it is going to get attention.
Yeah, and, you know, I think the Jazz were smart on it, and I think it was our guy, Tony, who kind of noticed that in the first place and made a, you know, kind of a column around it a couple months ago. But, yeah, look, John Stockton played 18 minutes a game, and so, you know, only averaged, I believe it was 5 assists a game in his rookie season. Darren Williams did play 28 minutes a night, but he was playing a lot of his minutes at the 2 guard next to, like, Keith McLeod and stuff. So look, it's the 56th most assists by a rookie in NBA history, right? So on one hand, that is a good thing, and you know, Isaiah's got 6 games left now, and probably gets into that 40 to 45 range. And if you look at the top 50 assist men in NBA history, most of them turned out to be pretty solid NBA players, pretty solid NBA point guards, and so I think it is definitely a positive sign for what he can bring on the floor and what this means for his career. But yeah, it is kind of weird that the franchise maybe most associated with good point guard play between John Stockton and Darren Williams has so low of a rookie record, right? It ranks 26th among the 30 NBA franchises in terms of where that rookie record stands. But, you know, Isaiah broke the record that was there, and good for him. And, you know, I think it is, you know, an accomplishment worth celebrating to some degree, even if it's not like, does not mean Isaiah Collier is the next John Stockton.
I think they're 4-22 in their last 26 games. And, you know, they're going to play the Rockets tonight. Is this how does this season compare, Andy? Because we've all been spoiled. We really have. And it's funny, you and I share a common thing we were talking about. My first year on Jazz Pre-Aff and Post was Ty Corbin's last year as the Jazz coach, and I believe that was your first year as a credentialed media member. And that was tough. You know, Ty's last year was tough. Quinn's first year was tough, but Quinn's first year at least bred a little bit of hope, and you could see the plan. How is this year compared to other seasons you've covered as a Jazz media member?
Yeah, I mean, it's been the worst on-court experience, and that's not, you know, breaking any news, right? Like, it's the first Jazz team ever to lose 60 games, and we have still 5 or 6 losses left to go. I would say that team probably was more combative from a coaching point of view, and that Ty Corbin got really defensive when you ask him questions about it, because in the end, Ty was trying to win in a way that Will Hardy is not trying to win, right? Like, Ty was really trying to play some veterans like Richard Jefferson, like Marvin Williams ahead of the young guys. We haven't really seen that very much from Will Hardy. And the defensive scheme that Ty Corbin put in was pretty atrocious, right? And did not respond to all the questions kind of about that. Will is much more positive, and I think it's less combative of a relationship with the media. And then also, I think, probably a little bit less combative with the players, too, in that, while he's not afraid to, if they play poorly, to throw them under the bus a little bit, he also, I think, has kind of reasonable expectations for where they are in their careers and kind of pointing them towards good player development outcomes by, kind of keeping the pressure on them in terms of working hard and so on and so forth. So, I think like the vibe of the team is actually not as bad as you would expect given the 60 losses. And I think in general, the young players keep it pretty light in there. The veterans do too. Kind of the one guy who's maybe most upset by the losing is Walker Kessler, which I think is really interesting. And so anyway, I think it's been easier to cover this year than it was my first year. Even though, there are 6 games left, and it's been a definite slog. Kind of the only thing that first year has to recommend for it is that it was our first year, and so the job felt a lot more novel. And we were, doing something new, and this is what our 12th, 13th year covering the team now, and we know that there are better possibilities out there. We've covered some really good teams. This is not that.
There was some TV data that came out a number of weeks ago now, and I believe that during the height of the Quinn Snyder teams with Donovan and Rudy, the Jazz were second in the NBA in local TV ratings. Number 1 was Golden State, because that was when Steph was Stephen and Durant and Clay, and the Golden State dynasty was at its peak. And if I remember correctly, the Jazz have had the second worst drop in local TV ratings. Now, I'm at not as many games as you, but the games I've been to, the fans have been there. So the building still seems to be pretty packed. TV ratings on a local angle down. How's engagement? I mean, and then also the feedback you get from Jazz fans. Do you feel like that they understand the deal? Do you feel like they're still kind of plugged in? And what sort of content that you guys create gets the most interest? Is it intrigue with prospects? Is it young players? From your standpoint, what is the interest of this market right now in this basketball team?
Yeah, I mean, it's low, and I think everyone understands that it is moving. Stuff that is moving forward gets more readership than stuff that is about the game or about what's happened to the season, right? Everyone knows that the Jazz are bad. Kind of deep dives into Isaiah Collier or Keontae George aren't doing it for the marketplace. It's been, kind of the future-looking stuff that has been better, whether it's writing about Cooper Flagg or AJ DeBonster or whatever. I will say that even though they have had that second highest drop this year, and I believe it's 44%, if I remember right on that number, that still puts them pretty high in the NBA ratings, local ratings territory, right? There are a lot of NBA franchises that just have zero impact in their communities, right? Whether it's Charlotte's really bad, Atlanta's really bad, the Brooklyn Nets nobody cares about, the Clippers ratings are terrible. I could go on and name 3 or 4 more teams, but the Jazz still their baseline, even when they are having their worst season in franchise history, and broadcasting that they are losing games on purpose, still have better ratings than these teams, which I think is a real credit to Jazz fans. And it is a real credit that the Jazz are filling up buildings, the Delta Center, more or less every night. There are still, there are some open seats, and the team's counting sellouts that probably are not quite sellouts. But I'll tell you what, it's a heck of a lot better than what I see when I go on the road and go to places like New Orleans or Charlotte or Atlanta or whatever. So, I think Jazz fans are to be proud of that, to be lauded for that. And I think, talking to guys like Walker Kessler and the young players, they do feel that it adds a little bit of extra energy and emotion to their development cycle, right? Instead of playing in an empty building, they are playing in one that's full of fans that are actually cheering the Jazz to do well, even if it doesn't really benefit them in the long run. So I think that has been kind of a cool part of this. Now, I don't know how long that lasts, right? Like if next year is a full tanking year as well, maybe we start to see even more real slippage. But yeah, like it is much better than it could be. I'll say that.
So it's not a great rookie class. Okay. So the Jazz have sent out packets to media members such as yourself, because you're a voter, to encourage people to vote for Isaiah Collier to be on the all rookie team. So Stephon Castle, really, really good. Zachary Richachet from the Hawks, who was a number 1 overall pick, has been fine. Not what you want from a number 1 pick. Then there's Alex Sarr. There's the Khalil Ware kid from Miami who didn't get off to a great start, but lately, because of Miami playing young players, he's looked pretty good. There's Jalen Wells, Zach Edey. And then you get into Bub Carrington, Isaiah Collier, Donovan Clingan, Kyle Filipowski. That's like the latest rookie rankings on NBA.com. So do you think Isaiah has a chance to make this team?
Yeah, I think he does, and I think he's got a chance, and probably a good chance, to be all rookie second team, right? So the rookie teams are positionless, and so it's just top 5 rookies, second 5 rookies, and so I wouldn't expect him to get a lot of Rookie of the Year votes. I wouldn't expect him to get, I would expect probably not a ton of first team votes given the names you mentioned, but yeah, second team is reasonable. I think Kyle Filipowski also has a chance maybe to slide in kind of that 10th spot. I think he'll get votes there, but there are some other guys that, just frankly are more famous, like a Dalton Knecht, for example, who's played fewer games, but had a bright early season before tailing off recently, where Kyle Filipowski has kind of been the opposite. It's going to be interesting. I know that for a lot of the voters, like the all rookie second team is probably the thing that they spend the least amount of time on, right? Like just because it's such a weird thing. And especially in a class like this where it's not a strong rookie class. But yeah, I could see Isaiah's kind of counting numbers and honestly Kyle's efficiency being pretty interesting to a lot of voters.
You referenced Will Hardy earlier, and we did see and have seen, quite frankly, some nights where the frustration just boils over. And the most recent example, I think it was after the Rockets game, they got housed by Memphis, and then they got housed in the second half by Houston. And it was one of those nights where Will was very frustrated with the lack of intensity and passion and desire to play this game. And I like honest Will more than I like any other Will. I mean, I enjoy most all of his post-game pressers because you more often than not learn something, more often than not get a peek into this program and its progress or lack thereof. And I'm not saying he's a dishonest person, but when he gets into the spot where the frustration seeps in, because look, man, all the NBA coaches I know are maniacal about winning, and their win and loss record is a direct reflection on how people view them historically. And this is a guy, ever since he took the job, it has just not had the pieces to make games a fair fight. I wonder beneath the surface, when you get those glimpses of frustrated Will, is that a glimpse into maybe where he's at with this process? I would be a lot more frustrated than he seems to be. And yes, I know he's making millions of dollars, and I know he has options picked up next year and the year after. But the way losing grades on coaches, I just feel like it has to maybe grade on him a little bit more than he lets on.
Yeah, I think, and I'm with you with really liking Will's post-game press conferences. I wish on the broadcast they showed more of them. They tend to show kind of the 2 or 3 minute clip, and usually he goes on for like 8 or 10 minutes, and all of it is really interesting and frankly, not to hit on our guys, but better and more directly relevant than what Olema and Mike are saying. But I think like it is when he is frustrated, when those moments of emotion really show from Will post game, like they did last week, he is more upset with his players than he is with his situation. I think he knows that like he does have a say in kind of front office decisions, and ultimately kind of basically agrees that this is the right thing to do, right? Like in the end, Will knows the landscape of the NBA and knows how important good players are to success, and is trying to build a culture, but also knows that, the Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, Taylor Hendricks, Utah Jazz are not going to cut it, right? And So he's on board with this vision, even though it is difficult. Now, are there times where he would like, the front office to do something else? Of course. Are there times when, I'm sure he wonders what it would have been like had he stayed in Boston and gotten that job instead of Joe Mazzulla. But in the end, he does have the long-term extension. They do have a really good pick in this upcoming draft that could change everything. And I think, there is some reason to be optimistic about that. And then I think he does have some optimism about the Jazz's young players when they do play well and when they do show building blocks, what we've seen from Kyle Filipowski a little bit this year and kind of Isaiah's overall approach to the game has been really positive. So, look, I think it's definitely frustrating on a night-to-night basis, and you can see Will kind of seething over there, arms crossed on the sideline as he watches boneheaded play after boneheaded play. But, I think he's been pretty good at compartmentalizing that and do think that, he sees himself here for the long term, that the front office sees himself here for the long term, and as a result is in a pretty decent place head coaching-wise.
Do you feel like, based off of conversations that you've had over there, that it's been a scenario where they've had to eat a little humble pie and they've come to a realization, you're not making a trade for Drew Holiday, you're not signing Paul George, Mikal Bridges, you're not signing Kristaps Porzingis. That was another rumor out there. Do you think they've just become to resign to kind of exactly where they're at and exactly the type of pain tolerance that this is probably going to take?
I think they have now switched. You don't hear them talking about big game hunting. You don't hear them talking about using the trade assets at the draft picks as trade assets anymore. You hear them talk about building through the draft. I haven't heard a, hey, we screwed up admission, which would be my preference, right? Because I do think they screwed up. To really think you had a chance at Paul George last year was crazy, and they really did. And but that was always obviously insane. I don't know. And so I haven't heard hey, we really messed up the first 2 years of this rebuild. But what I have heard much more of is a direction that I do think is more aligned with reality, which is this is the Utah Jazz. You're going to have to build through the draft.
All right. Anything about these final 6 games that is interesting to you at all? Or are we just running out the clock and it's 1, 2, 3 Cancun?
Oof. Yeah. Okay. So maybe a couple of Isaiah Collier's continued play, and he has played less. He played less well in March than he did in February. I'm interested to see if the shot continues to go in at a higher rate, and in general, just how he deals with tough defenders. So tonight, presumably a Dylan Brooks is going to be matched up against him. I think that's really interesting. How he deals with actual good defenses playing against him. He really struggled earlier on in the year when Toumani Camara was matched up against him, for example, a guy with kind of all defense hopes, really long, plays up in Portland. How he kind of deals with that is vaguely interesting. I want to see more from Kyle Filipowski and rim protection stuff. It's young player micro skills. But, as far as Jazz games go, this is the opposite of must-watch TV. It is for sickos like me and you and not for general audience consumption, because it is going to be rough on purpose.
All right, before I set you loose, Pablo Mastroeni, guest of the program yesterday. So now what we have is Kurt Schmidt, Tony Beltran, Jason Kreis, Pablo Mastroeni, all on record over the past few weeks on the show, saying that 2 signings specifically are really close to getting over the line. Pablo yesterday, if I read between the lines, offered more of a pessimistic viewpoint on this situation. I'm not saying it's not happening, but Pablo even referenced they moved on to another player that they were looking at. Now, here's the deal, Andy. Tomorrow is 3 weeks away from the primary transfer window closing. As Sportico reported, our guy CK Paul Tenorio at The Athletic and you over the Trib, we are in this situation where there's conversations about the Miller Group buying RSL. The Athletic Reports indicates that Ryan Smith is expected to be entirely out, which you get. He's busy with basketball, hockey, and an upcoming film festival. And the Blitzer group, will maintain their role in some way, shape, or form, which I think is a good thing. I think that's probably good. So what's your take on where we're at? Do you think the holdup is the ownership transfer? And do you believe that with 3 weeks left, because you know this, dude, you can get a signing done, and then it can take weeks and weeks to actually get across the line? Like, we are running out of time. How do you think this plays out?
Yeah, I mean, I think you were right. Like, it is because of the sale that it's clear that the Blitzer group took away the money. And that's something that I've heard that, Scott Grace came in and, like, all of a sudden where the money had been happening and they had signed Mark Zook and Lachlan Brook and all these, Diego Gonçalves, like, that went away in a way that the front office didn't expect. And understandably, they don't want to rip their ownership in public, but like that, it does seem that has happened. Do I think that they could have been more agile given that? And do I think the Blitzer group should have been more transparent about what was going on there? Yes, but that's not where we are. And so as a result, RSL is really, really bad. Clearly, they need the signings. I mean, the attack in Minnesota on Saturday was pitiful. They have a real chance to lose at home against a Galaxy team that is yet to find a win on the road. Like, it is, it's been tough for them. They need the signing. It should be possible to, 3 weeks, you're right, is not a ton of time, but it is enough time to get something done. And, it does matter, right? Like, it is the realistic difference between RSL having playoff chances this year and them not having playoff chances this year, and that being another kind of ownership transition out of the playoffs failure. So that's where we are. And, ultimately kind of I'm buoyed by that it seems like this situation will come to an end, hopefully relatively soon. But, I would not say that my optimism level is high either.
One more follow-up here, just to get your take on this, because I've heard and seen some people bring to the table, like, well, the Millers never went into the luxury tax with the Jazz, so what's to say they're going to sign players for RSL? I find this is a false equivalency. Luxury tax in pro basketball, 170, 180 million, or whatever it was when the Millers owned the Jazz. You do not need to spend near the amount in soccer on players that you do in the NBA. Are you confident that the Millers, with the combination of the Blitzer group, will step up and write the checks that you need to keep up with signings in MLS that are as expensive as they've ever been, even for some role players now?
Yeah, I'm going to have to punt because I just, I haven't talked to the Miller Group about that and want to. You're right that they should be able to, that the franchise valuation and the rising salaries and generally transfer fees in MLS should allow them to. The fact that the club has made $15 million on transfers in the last 18 months should allow them to. The fact that they have sold their dealerships for $4 billion and the Jazz for $1.6 billion would allow them to buy, literally 500,000 strikers if they wanted to, should allow them to. But I will have to know what they say about that, how they feel about that before I answer the question. I think generally, like, they treated the Jazz relatively well in that they were, like, in the mid-tier of payroll expenditures most years, and I think that's probably the most likely outcome for RSL, which would be, kind of an upgrade over what they've been over their history. But do I really expect them to compete with, like, Atlanta and sign 20 million dudes? I kind of don't, so we'll see. I guess in the end, just kind of punting the question until I talk to more people from Miller Management and understand what their goals are. Is it just to have the teams used as a real estate play, or is it to really try to bring RSL into true contention? I think is an interesting question that we'll find out.
Fair enough. Thank you, my friend. Have a good week. We'll see you soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
Andy Larson, Salt Lake Tribune. We'll catch a break. Social media influencer Bill Oram joins us coming up on the other side on a Wednesday edition of The Drive. So keep it right here on ESPN 700. I have the New York Times obituary up for Val Kilmer, and they have not referenced Tombstone as one of the movies in the obituary. Isn't that wild? How do you not do that?
Seems like quite the omission.
Oh, all right. A source indicates our next guest was also unhappy about that. He is social media influencer Bill Oram on the program on a Wednesday. Bill, happy Wednesday, sir. How are you?
It took me a second to figure out where that would have come from because I was absolutely on fire about this last night. In the group chat, they did update every episode. It got in there, but I was just on fire. Full of the story for Val Kilmer, not exclusive Don Holiday. So I'm glad to hear it came around on that. But it's great to be here, Spence. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for the time. You should know that we had one Christopher Kamrani live in the studio for an hour today, so there were several Bill Oram stories that were shared. Just so
Go back and listen to it and make sure that no secrets were spilled.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bill. I thought you were a daily listener live. I guess I'm mistaken.
Sorry.
Huh.
Sorry, I was on deadline over here. I apologize.
Okay, fair enough. Well, young man, you went viral recently, and as I referenced, you have certainly leaned into the social media content sharing, and no hatred. I don't know that I could do it. You're better at it than I am, but tell our listeners what happened, how this all went down, and let's go from there.
Oh, it's funny. I was at the NCAA tournament in Seattle and ended up being seated behind the TNT broadcasting crew, directly behind Jalen Rose for the Oregon-Arizona game, and I was seated next to a local television reporter here in Portland, Brenna Green from Channel 6, and she happens to co-host my podcast, which is the Oregonian Sports Podcast. And so we were joking around about using that as an opportunity to pimp the Oregonian Sports Podcast. So with about a minute left in the game, you can see us having a very spirited conversation, and good lip readers would be able to tell that she and I were both saying Oregonian Sports Podcast, Oregonian Sports Podcast, Oregonian Sports Podcast. But there weren't a lot of lip readers on the internet, apparently, and they thought something else was going on. And I got labeled a Riz God and basically became a hero of the internet for spitting game with a minute left in the NCAA tournament, which was not what was going on, in case my wife is listening. But yes, Riz God Bill, thanks for putting it on TNT.
I'm sorry, Bill. Are you claiming to not be a Riz God? That was always my understanding.
Okay. I am also a Riz God.
Okay.
It's just that moment wasn't the proof that people thought it was.
Okay, fair enough. Because I didn't catch it live, but whoever sent it out initially on Twitter, I don't know if it's because I've interacted with you before. It came across my feed, and of course, I promptly shared it with Aaron and Chris and everybody, and they were already on it. Of course, you can't get anything by CK. You know that.
Yeah, you got some of the best reporters in the country right there in Salt Lake.
Did this turn into tangible results for the pod?
We've only had one episode since, and so we're still waiting for those metrics to come in on whether or not it is whether it's going to give us the boost that we hoped. But I think that continued media appearances like this one, where I'm able to talk about the exposure for the Oregonian Sports Podcast, it can only help. And I should also plug my new video series, the Oram Forum, which you can find on Instagram and TikTok.
Oh, you're leaned into the TikTok side of things now. Okay, so we were talking about during the CK Hour, which you listen to live and you'll listen to later in the replay.
Of course. How
you have leaned into this social media influencer content, kind of approach. What motivated this? Now, I did not know this about you until earlier, but Christopher shared with us that you are a fan of the arts. You are a musical fan. You enjoy plays. So maybe there's a thespian that's been inside you this entire time?
Oh yeah, I played Rusty Charlie in Guys and Dolls back in Nebraska High School in 2002. So I mean that was kind of the beginning of my. Well, that's actually not true. In 1994, I played Winthrop Peru in The Music Man at Nebraska High School. I was in the first grade, but they needed a first grader to play Winthrop. So I was up there on stage singing Gary, Indiana, and playing the little cornet. Yeah, I mean, really, it all began then, I think you could safely say. But No, I mean, I think, we're just trying to embrace the moment, the media moment, and meeting our readers and our consumers where they are. And they're not just on the printed pages of the Oregonian anymore. As much as sometimes we wish they were, they're online, they're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. And so we go where our readers are, where their eyeballs are. And so we're trying to, present our information in a lot of different ways. I wrote a column today that will be in print in the Oregonian tomorrow, but it's online right now, about Tumani Kamara from the Blazers and his bid for an all-defensive team spot. And then we just made a video about it too, where I'm talking about it, and we had a lot of fun with it that way. So trying to reach our our subscribers in different places, but it's fun for me because I do like to have fun with with these sorts of things, and so it gives me a different way to sort of flex those art kid muscles for sure.
Was that the character Ron Howard played in the film adaptation Winthrop? Am I remembering that correctly?
You absolutely are. When he was Ronnie Howard, he played Winthrop, Peru, singing Gary, Indiana, and the Wells Fargo wagon with his cute little lisp. I had a lisp and everything.
Wait. Do we have video evidence of this, Bill?
I'm self-destructive enough that I will try to find the video and get it to you.
Please. Oh, I want nothing more. No, I'd appreciate that. And look, I want to be clear. I respect the attempt. I respect the endeavor. I respect the desire to be front-facing. Is there any part of it that you're not that comfortable with? I don't know that I've ever really been able to lean into stuff like that.
Well, I'm concerned about my wardrobe, Spence. I don't have a wardrobe budget from the Oregonian, so pretty soon I'm going to have to start repeating outfits on the Orem forum, and I think that the viewers are gonna object to that, and so I'm gonna have to talk to my bosses about increasing a bit of a wardrobe budget here so I can keep it fresh, keep the fit fresh for our viewers.
Is this all sports related? Is it all sports related surrounding the great city of Portland and the area in which you work now?
It is right now, but I mean, I think we'd be open to expanding it beyond sports, really. If you ever wanted to submit a question or have me address it, I mean, it is the Orem Forum, so we like to think of it as a bit of a two-way street. So last week we did an episode where I answered questions about the Blazers, Ducks, baseball to Portland. I know the baseball issue, the Portland versus Salt Lake thing has been going strong. So trying to tackle all those issues, but I mean, we could expand beyond sports. I mean, the video I recorded today, I dropped a Sabrina Carpenter reference.
Nice.
So be on the lookout for that.
I like it. Hey, what's been, we're pretty similar markets, Salt Lake and Portland. Portland a little bit bigger. When you look at the rating system, I think we're 28, 29. Portland's like 19 or 20. But when it comes to NBA teams, great college teams, then MLS as well, and then the desire to expand, we're pretty similar. And we also find ourselves as strange bedfellows with two NBA teams that are unserious about winning. What's the public support or lack thereof with this Blazers team that's still trying to find their way with a bunch of young players? It's been rough down here trying to cover the Jazz. They just lost their 60th game. We've never had that happen here. And you wrote here, and you were a media member here for a while, and we're spoiled because the Jazz, more often than not, are good. And when they're not, they find their way back. And they're not close to finding their way back. What are the challenges trying to cover a team that's unserious about competing?
Well, not just unserious about competing, but in a town where fans have, like you said, spoiled, but just been really accustomed to having a team that was in the mix every year. And, the Jazz obviously had a brief period where they were true championship contenders, but, for the most part, you could just count on them to be in the mid of that Western Conference race and win a playoff series and be a tough out. And that was, something the city could sort of be proud of and rally behind. Portland, it was the same. So these are two teams and franchises and fan bases that are not accustomed to the idea of tanking, really, historically. And so in Portland, I think there's actually been a bit of a reversal in public opinion. If you'd asked me this in December or January, I would have said, "Oh, fans are sick of the Blazers tanking and all this, this uncertainty around who they're building around." I think people are buying in on this Blazers team finally because they've gotten so much better since January 15th. They had kind of a rough March, but they're going to finish the season with like 35, 36 wins. And that's kind of a disaster in the tanking realm, right? Like they've basically taken themselves out of having, what you'd consider to be a good shot at Cooper Flag. I mean, they're still, a chance statistically that they could jump into that top four. But, they have basically said, hey, we're going to embrace, letting our young guys play and compete and win the games they can. And, I think it's brought people back. You're able to see the growth that Denny Advia has had in his year in Portland. I mean, Spence, I'm not going to sit here and try to say that like Denny Advia is a number one option going forward, but he's been a really good player. I mean, he's scored 30 plus, in several straight games. He's, his numbers over the last month are all-star level. And again, I'm not saying that's who he is, going forward, but, he's really asserted himself as a really, really, really good player. Tumani Kamara, like I mentioned, deserves to be on an all-defensive team. And so with Portland, there's those signs of growth that show that they're kind of pointing in the right direction. Now, kind of taking those steps before you really have an identity in terms of like a star that you're building around can be dangerous, because that is how teams do end up kind of getting stuck in the middle. So I think that's the risk that the Blazers are facing. It's kind of like, okay, you've got some pieces here, but who's your guy? They need to go find a guy. And that's what, I think they need to do basically, this summer. And if it's not going to be in the draft and it's not going to be a Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper type guy, what can you go do, on the trade market? And that's the challenge they face.
It's it's interesting, and I haven't had you on for a minute, so we can talk about things that I've talked about with a lot of my NBA guests. And the most, the most conservative guess here is 8 teams now in pro basketball have been unserious. And it makes the product so hard to watch. And yes, I'm operating off the prism of watching our local team completely bail on any sort of competitive nature. And the debate turns into, Bill, like, is this a problem for the league? And I think the answer is yes. And ratings would back this up. And then the other side of it is they're about to enter a $72 billion broadcast deal. So if you ask the league office, they're going to look at you and say, oh, wait, what exactly is our problem? Like, look at our P&L statement. I get it. Do you think this is an issue where the Wembanyama injury causes San Antonio to go on tanking? Philadelphia has a pick that could go to OKC unless they lose the rest of their game. So they bench everybody. They've lost 9 straight. So again, conservative estimate 7 or 8 teams. More realistic, probably a third of the league unserious about competing. Do you think this is a problem in pro basketball?
I think it's a problem in the individual markets for sure. I don't think that, I think that it is so taxing on a fan base to have to punt on a season, one season after the next and hope for lottery odds. I don't know that it is doing enough damage to the league at large to get change affected. But I think, what you're talking about with, the fatigue in Salt Lake and having never seen a team like this, same in Portland over the last few years where they pulled the chair out in the final, after the All-Star break each of the last 3 years. I mean, they had stretches where they went like, I want to say like 3-22 over the last 2 months of the season a couple of years ago. I mean, it's just absolutely a miserable slog. And it's really hard to see the payoff when you're stuck in it. So I do think that what you lose potentially is you lose in-market fans for teams that have traditionally had really good fan support. And what these teams bank on, is that, hey, when we start winning again, those people are going to come back. And, look, I mean, Philadelphia went through one of the most miserable tanking, stretches ever. And once they were, I know they're bad again, but once they were kind of back in the mix, I mean, Wells Fargo Center was full. And so, I think that NBA teams have kind of started to take that fan loyalty for granted, that they will come back once you put a winning product on the floor. And I think that is, unfortunate that there isn't more consideration about the fan experience year to year in those teams that are trying to get back on top through the lottery.
One of the things that motivated us to book you is we had Howard Beck on the show on Friday, and I asked Howard about the week that occurred, last week in the ecosystem of media and NBA basketball, where LeBron James went on Pat McAfee's show and took shots at Stephen A. Smith. After Stephen A. Smith was talking about Bronny on his show, then there's the clip of LeBron confronting Stephen A. at a game. He even took a shot at Windhorst, which is wild. Nobody has stood up for LeBron James in the media ecosystem more than Brian Windhorst. So I was asking Howard about it, and his reaction was predictably curmudgeon and didn't want to discuss it, and said my friend Bill Oram wrote a piece on his beef with LeBron, which I remembered, but then I pulled up what you had written. I have it in front of me now. So before we get into this, Bill, I want you to give our listeners some context about what happened with you and LeBron, the actual incident that took place.
Well, so the background there, Spence, was that in 2022, the Lakers, were kind of limping toward another, unimpressive finish with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. LeBron was getting restless at the All-Star game. He actually told one of our reporters when I was at The Athletic, Jason Lloyd, that, a return to Cleveland wasn't out of the realm of possibility. And so I had written something to the effect of, this is how LeBron does it. He's exerting pressure on the franchise by kind of starting to drop breadcrumbs that he could leave if things don't get better. And as they don't start making moves. He had quoted Les Snead, F them picks, trade the picks for help now. It was clear what was happening. And so I wrote about that, and LeBron, or somebody close to LeBron, felt like I had, that it wasn't true. I think the problem really was that it was more true than they wanted to admit. And so in a press conference, LeBron had, taken a shot at me and said that, nobody should listen to me. And then the internet, of course, did what it does. And, I got a lot of, mean comments and threats, including, a Google Earth image of my home from somebody who said, you better stop lying about LeBron. And, so I had a conversation with LeBron about it. And the point I wanted to sort of, this was after a press conference in the hallway at Staples Center. And the point I wanted to kind of make to him was, when he uses his platform to come after people like me, people like Brian Windhorst as well, even though Brian has a bigger platform than I do, he doesn't have security. He has, presumably, the same amount of security as I have, which at the time was a Ring doorbell and a golden retriever. And so I told LeBron, when you use your platform to come after people like that, even though we might be critical of you, when you are as directly and vocally critical of us, it puts a target on us in a way, and gives people like kind of the bad actors permission to come out of the woodwork and think they're acting on his behalf. And he really rejected that. So we went back and forth. And as the conversation progressed, he finally just said to me, well, you better buy a gun. And that was sort of the acme of our encounter on that particular issue.
What was your reaction? Because I had a similar situation. I had, and every time I tell the story, I have to put the context on it. I'm not saying that all BYU fans are like this, but a number of years ago, I was working at a different station where a coworker of mine broke a story. I didn't even break the story, but a coworker of mine broke a story about a guy named Dwayne Busby, who was some BYU super fan. If I remember correctly, he was on staff down there, and they found out, it's wild to say this with the current landscape of college athletics, but he was providing some assistance to athletes and, things that right now are A, legal, and B, you just don't even think about. But back, this was like 2012 or 13, a coworker of mine reported it, and our entire station became the target for a grip of BYU fans. And one of them did the same thing, sent a picture of my house to my feed with a threatening message. And that was the first time I went, oh my gosh, okay, it's no longer sending me pictures of certain things or making fun of me for mistakes I made when I was younger. Like, this is real. This is personal. That's where I live. That's where I'm at right now. Mm-hmm. It was one of the most disconcerting, uncomfortable things that ever happened to me. What was your reaction and your wife's reaction when that message spilled in?
I think I had maybe I had a detachment from it just because I had at the time was spending so much time on social media and Twitter, and I kind of roll my eyes at a lot of the stuff that happens there, even something as personal as that. But my wife was really frightened, and just the idea, listen, we had young children, I was traveling a lot for work, all of those things, and the idea that somebody had gone to that level of effort to spook us. At that point, you don't know, maybe you assume that it's not a real threat, but that's something you can only be wrong about once. And so we, that's why I went and had the conversation with LeBron, not because I expected him to undo it, but I wanted him to think about it next time. And then he did send a tweet subsequently telling people to leave me alone, which surprised. I was surprised because I thought that would actually only further stoke the fire, but it did sort of subside after that.
I wonder, as a guy who covered LeBron in Los Angeles for a number of years, like, look, I'm not a LeBron hater, okay?
Sure.
This guy was put on the cover of a magazine at 17, and we all told him, you're next. And he was.
Mm-hmm.
And he has done everything from an on-court standpoint to justify the attention he received as a child, okay? And off the court, you know, there aren't a ton of LeBron James controversies that look really, really bad. So I wonder if you could help me understand, why does LeBron wade into these battles with Bill Oram? Why does LeBron wade into these battles with even Stephen A. Smith? And look, the Stephen A. Smith skip bailification of media is something I push back on all the time. I don't do the show the way they do. I understand that the piece of real estate he's carved out puts him on a different level than most of us. That's why he's a $100 million media personality. But, you know, Stephen A. Smith, Brian Windhorst, who, again, Brian Windhorst has stood up for LeBron more than any media member, or if it's Bill Oram, whatever it is. Why do you think LeBron wades in these waters when he does not have to at all? I don't understand what purpose this serves for him. I don't get it, Bill.
I don't either. And I think the best thing that I've been able to kind of land on is that in any sort of feud, if you will, the power dynamic with LeBron and literally anyone else is so dramatically skewed toward LeBron that he can't lose. Like, he cannot, in terms of like winning or losing the argument, like, he has the fan base, he has the support, what he says goes. So if he's feeling like he's in a back and forth, all he has to do is basically signal boost his opinion or his point of view, and he gets the support, so he can't lose. And so it's like, it's fly swatter against the fly. Even Stephen A., by the way, who has a massive platform, his audience and platform and the people who would stand for Stephen A. Smith, whoever they are, is nowhere near what LeBron has. And so I think that it's, he's so accustomed to winning and by extension being right that I think that he ends up kind of abusing his power in those dynamics. Now, the thing that I think ends up happening, and listen, I'm not a LeBron hater by any stretch. I have incredible respect for LeBron. I enjoyed my 4 years covering him, getting to know him on a professional level. But I do think that by wading into these waters, it shows a level of like pettiness and insecurity that I don't think that he would really want to be part of his resume or his image. And the more he does it and the more times he takes on these silly battles, I do think it has a negative impact on like what we would call his legacy, right? And I don't think that this like knocks him down in the, who's greater, him, Jordan, whatever. But like, it does sort of feed into some of these stereotypes about him on the court, right? Which is like, he's not as mentally tough, or he's not as clutch, or, obviously didn't want to take the last shot for a long time, dogged him in his career. He's not as clutch as Jordan was. These things, I realize they're not a one-to-one comparison, but I do think they sort of feed into some of these stereotypes that LeBron faces. And when we think about like, late career Kareem, Kareem was a guy who picked, various battles with writers and media, and, was overly focused on these perceived slights. And that becomes a big part of his legacy and how he's remembered. I think there is a risk for LeBron that if he continues to pick these battles, this will be part of what people remember about late career LeBron. And I just don't think it's very flattering.
Well, Riz King, appreciate the time today. Where can people go get all the work, whether it's the videos, the podcast, what you're doing as far as your writing goes? Where can everybody go find it?
Well, I'm doing most of my social media on Blue Sky these days, Spence. I've mostly jumped off of the X machine, except for infrequently sharing a column I've written there. So Blue Sky, Bill Oram, Instagram, Bill Oregonian, TikTok too. And then I got to tell you, I'm loving these videos we're doing. I'm posting them when I can, but give the Oregonian a follow on social, Instagram, everywhere else. And then of course, the column regularly, various topics, points of view on OregonLive.com. And if you happen to be in Portland, Oregon, listening to Spence from here where I am, pick up a print newspaper. We're back in broadsheet.
Oof, love it. Love it. I still, whenever I can, I pick up a paper. I still read books. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm old. But, Bill, it's always great catching up. Are you coming into town anytime soon? We'd love to catch a beverage with you.
Well, I'm just not entirely. I still have the LeBron haters who are concerned themselves with my whereabouts. So I don't know if I need to if I can actually give you my travel schedule on air.
Smart.
But let me just say that there's a chance I'll be in Utah at some point in the not so distant future, and I'd love to see you too.
Yeah, buddy. Don't be a stranger. Thanks for the time. Be good. Okay.
Hey, thank you. Good talking to you, Spence.
All right. The great Bill Oram spent a number of years down here with the Trib, and now he's back home in the backyard where he grew up, writing for the Oregonian. His piece on the LeBron beef I thought was really good and makes some really, really fair and salient points. I don't understand why LeBron wades in these waters. He doesn't have to, like, at all. But I appreciate Bill's time. Bill stops by today, courtesy of our good friends at IFA Country Stores. Any drive to the basket begins with the first step on the court. That's the ultimate power move. IFA's Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer, plus their lawn food, is the first choice to give your yard the healthy, thick green look you desire. The neighbors will be green with envy. Shop IFA online at ifa.coop or stop by one of their 18 Utah locations today. All right, coming up on the other side, the first piece of the puzzle to the Alex Jensen era appears to be in place as far as a player on the floor. We'll tell you who that is. And we'll get to some more college and pro basketball with Tony Jones. And then we will say goodnight at 6 o'clock on this Wednesday afternoon. Keep it right here on ESPN 700. All right, let's get a drive at 5 time, Wednesday afternoon style. Your commute home on a Wednesday starts right about now. 7 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. You are halfway through your work week. You are one day closer to the weekend on this chilly but not snowy, unlike yesterday, April Wednesday afternoon. Temperatures getting a little bit warmer throughout the course of the week, then through the weekend. Then we're looking like a really good spring-type week next week. But as it is, every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. We have had a very, very busy show today. A lot of different topics going on. A really fun night in pro basketball last night. Saw Stephen Wardell Curry go for 52 points against the Grizzlies. He knocked down 12 three-point shots. He had 11 through 3, and it looked like Clay's record was going to be in trouble, his old Splash brother. So Warriors now the fifth seed in the Western Conference after beating Memphis last night. The Grizzlies on a bit of a free fall after deciding to fire their head coach Taylor Jenkins. Nikola Jokic had a 60-point triple-double, but what Russell Westbrook decided to show up and say, well, no, it doesn't mean we're going to win. And the Nuggets lost to the T-Wolves last night, 140-139 in overtime. But Jokic was just insanely good. We've got a good slate of NBA games tonight, including the Knicks and the Cavs at Rocket Arena in Cleveland, Ohio. The Knicks are 0-5 this year against the Cavs and the Celtics. So kind of a two-team race in the East. Knicks trying to put their name in that mix. They're going to have to show they can compete with the best in the East. The Utah Jazz continue their race to the bottom tonight as they take on the Houston Rockets coming up at 6 o'clock. So under an hour right now, the Jazz are in action. So busy night in the NBA. We are awaiting Saturday when the Final Four will be here. All four number one seeds in action. Last time an SEC team even played in the national championship game, it was Kentucky in 2014. Kind of wild to consider. So we're going to have Florida take on Auburn, two number one seeds out of the SEC. So an SEC school will play for the NCAA championship. And then what should just be a brawl, should be a backyard brawl. It's Houston and Duke. As we continue to talk about, Duke is worth your time to watch if you are a Jazz fan, because that's what all this is about. The Jazz have lost 60 games for the first time in the history of the Jazz organization, over 50 years now. And the entire reason, of course, is to see if they can grab that number one overall pick where they will draft Cooper Flagg. I would encourage you to watch that game on Saturday and then just kind of check out how Cooper reacts to Houston's physicality. Remember, Cooper Flagg, as I continue to remind everybody, reclassified and should be a senior in high school right now. Cooper Flagg turned 18 about 3.5 months ago, and he is about to face a team with veteran players that have NBA-type physicality, and Kelvin Sampson likes to bring pressure. You guys know that. We've watched Houston dismantle BYU and Utah this year. So Final Four right around the corner. They're kind of excited for these games, even though there are no Cinderellas. Really no Cinderellas, quite frankly, in the Sweet 16. Do not sell me on Arkansas. John Calipari has like 4 pros on that roster, but now all 4 number one seeds advance to the Final Four for the first time since 2008. So the breaking news the day today, as we've discussed over the past, couple of weeks, ever since Alex Jensen got the Utah coaching job and announced as the 17th head coach in Utah men's basketball history, would Alex be motivated to bring back either a coach or multiple coaches that are on the staff right now, or any of these players that just played for Craig Smith and Josh Eilert? Well, news broke today that Keanu Dawes will withdraw from the transfer portal, and he will come back and play for Alex Jensen coming up next year. Keanu is a sophomore with technically 2 years to play, but with the grad transfer rules, he has 3 years of eligibility. And as I continue to say, I'm not saying that Craig Smith did not like Keanu Dawes, but Josh Eilert clearly liked Keanu Dawes a lot more than Craig did. In the 4 games prior to Craig's firing, Keanu Dawes, 5 points, 2 points, 4 points, 2 points, 14 minutes, 12 minutes, 17 minutes, 18 minutes. Then after Josh Eilert took over, he started playing Keanu a lot more. And Keanu posted 5 double-doubles in the 7 games that Craig coached. He had 18 points, 10 boards against Arizona at McHale, and really looked like the only Ute that belonged that night. Arizona dump-trucked Utah 83-66 that night. And the very next game, home win against ASU, 15 points, 11 boards on 6 of 9 shooting. 21 points, 15 rebounds against UCF in the Big 12 tournament. Utah, of course, lost that game. 8 of 13 from the floor. And then in the single game they played in College Basketball Crown, Keanu may have been the best player on the floor for Utah. 19 points, 11 rebounds, 19 points on 6 shots because he went at the free throw line 9 times and knocked down 8 of those free throws. So the first piece of the Alex Jensen puzzle, on-court puzzle, is now in place. Of course, Alex has made a couple of hires with Rafael Chilius and Wes Wilcox. Rafael will be Alex's lead assistant, and Wes will be the general manager of the program. And, of course, they both will report to Alex Jensen. So we await word on the other Utes in the transfer portal. Hunter Erickson did a brilliant thing. As a grad transfer, Hunter will spend the final year of his college career on Oahu at the University of Hawaii. Go do your thing, man. I would do the same thing. So we do have news on Hunter Erickson. We're awaiting word on Ezra Asar, Jake Wallin, Miro Little, some of the other players that do have eligibility left, and to see whether or not Alex Jensen is interested in bringing them back. But only time will tell. Not sure how that's going to go, but we do have one piece of the puzzle in place. Keanu Dawes, as a rising junior, has decided to come back and play for Alex Jensen, Rafael Chilius, Wes Wilcox, and Utah men's basketball. BYU got some bad news today. Dallin Hall is in the transfer portal. Of course, Cannon Catchings announced that he has elected to enter the transfer portal as well. After the BYU-Bama loss, Cannon Catchings was interviewed, and just the tone of his voice and the body language indicated that he was clearly frustrated. Cannon never really cracked the rotation consistently. He did have some moments here or there where he showed that he's got a great stroke. He can really shoot the basketball. He is a former 4-star recruit that, according to multiple outlets and sources, including Tony Jones, who will join us coming up in a bit, was one of the highest paid NIL players on the roster. All of 6'9", great length, great measurables. Again, can really shoot it from the outside. But when you look at his splits, never ultimately was able to get into Kevin Young's rotation. And part of me wonders, so when you look at Cannon's season, his best game was against Baylor, where he went 8 of 8 from the floor, hit all 4 of his three-point shots, had 23 points, and a really good win for BYU in Provo. But he just bounced around as it pertains to his participation in the rotation. He actually got a lot of minutes early. He played 32 minutes against Ole Miss, played 27 minutes UCR. He had an opening night 17-point game. But it just went back and forth. And to finish off the season in the Big 12 tournament, he did play 15 minutes in BYU's win at McHale at Arizona, but then 10 minutes ASU, 4 minutes against West Virginia, 4 minutes against VCU in the tournament, 5 minutes against Alabama in the tournament. And after the game, Cannon was interviewed, and he sounded pretty despondent. So no surprise that he is elected to move on and find another place to play. The rumors are Cannon Catchings is looking to play for Hubert Davis in North Carolina, but no official news there. And then Dallin Hall has officially entered the transfer portal. You know, Dallin was a big piece to this team this year, and Dallin Hall hit the transfer portal last year after Mark Pope decided to leave Provo for Lexington. And by all accounts, Mark Pope badly wanted Dallin Hall in Kentucky. Maybe that's where we see Dallin Hall land. We had Spencer Litton on the show a couple weeks ago. He referenced that Dallin was highly chased after by Creighton to play for them. So, you know, Dallin Hall this year, when Yegor Demon struggled with pressure, was the answer that Kevin Young had and kind of the anecdote at times. So that's a big loss. I do wonder whether or not that means Yegor Demon has informed people that he is coming back. Because if Yegor's coming back, Dallin's going to be a backup again. And, you know, Dallin Hall at this point in his career, he has talked often about wanting to play pro basketball. And if he wants to do that, he's going to have to find a place to play bigger minutes than he did this year. He is a junior, so technically 2 years of eligibility with the grad transfer stuff if he wants to go that route. So a little transfer portal news as it pertains to the world of college basketball here locally that we've been discussing on the show today. And we'll see what's next. Of course, with the Cannon Catching situation, this very well could have been a scenario where Kevin Young sat down with him and said, look, if we can get, you know, this player back, if Richie Saunders comes back, we have A.J. DeBanza coming in to campus, and both those two players play where you want to play, and there simply will be no minutes for you. Maybe this is a mutual parting of ways. I don't know. We don't have any insider answers there, but BYU losing Cannon Catchings, Dallin Hall, Utah with a grip of players in the transfer portal. News comes down that Keanu Dawes is coming back. All right, final segment of the show on a Wednesday afternoon, a chilly Wednesday, but no snow, which is good after flying home from Vegas yesterday, digging the car out of the driveway. I'm over the snow officially. That's just me. You guys can keep praying for it. Have we been asked to pray for snow recently? I haven't been keeping track of the news.
Maybe a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, we're getting to summertime though.
All right. Can I ask people to pray for sun? Is that cool? Can I do that?
I think you have the free will to ask for any prayers. I think that's part of the game.
We're both
part
named,
of the rules.
We're both named Spencer, and my guess is we're both named after the same Spencer. I'll leave that there, but I'm going to ask to pray for sun. Friday looks decent. Saturday, Sunday, okay. 60s, 70s next week. I'm ready for it, man. I know we talk about it all the time. All right. When I saw the Mello news, thought about you. You're our resident Mello guy, and I talked about this earlier with Tony. I think Mello took a lot of heat, maybe because he came in the same draft class as LeBron and D. Wade, who both turned out to be just better, more complete players than he was. But I think if you ever watch Mello in college and throughout his years in Denver, you just took him for what he was, which was for maybe 6 or 7 years the best pure scorer in the game. Isolation. I mean, he was impossible to stop. Took on the challenge of New York, at least made them somewhat interesting. Never got past the second round of the playoffs. 3 gold medals, national championship in college. This, to me, was a no-brainer. I feel like some people have reacted to it like they're a little bit shocked, but you're our Mello guy. What do you think?
Yeah, and the people who, as you kind of alluded to earlier, who are somewhat surprised or maybe weren't aware that LeBron is not even an argument, a first ballot Hall of Famer, I think those people think it's the NBA Hall of Fame, right? And even if it is just the NBA Hall of Fame, a 10-time All-Star, 6-time All-NBA performer, a scoring champ, a guy who's in the All-75 list on the NBA, he's going to the Hall of Fame, just to be clear. And then you add on top of that, Spence, the best one-and-done NCAA championship performance we've probably ever seen. You add on top of that the 3-time Olympic gold medalist and a captain on some of those teams. And he wasn't just on the Olympic team. He was their leading scorer for several of those runs and finished his international career USA's all-time leading scorer as an Olympic athlete. He's an all-rookie team. You go down the list, there's really no argument that he belongs in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And even though I'm a Utah kid, he was a Denver Nuggets player for a long time, and Nick after that played for the Lakers in the Trailblazers. Somehow was I probably would say my favorite player growing up, between him and old Allen Iverson. So there's a soft spot in my heart for Carmelo, and to see him get to a deserved first ballot Hall of Fame is pretty cool because, like you said, he took some flack. Comparison is a thief of joy, right? When a guy is not the defender that LeBron James is, he's kind of seen as lesser than. When that's a tough comparison to make, a tough draft class to enter. So pretty cool to see. You know what makes me feel old though? I remember I'm trying to think of the year, 2014 or so. It wasn't when the Knicks were really good. It was kind of right after that quick run where they made I think they were the second seed in the West. It was right after that. They were fighting for a playoff spot. And I got tickets down next to the bench, ended up sitting next to Carmelo's son, Keon. And he was a little kid. He was like so young that he had no interest in the basketball game that was going on. He was sitting there playing with an iPad. He's now one of the higher ranked recruit prospects at the prep level. You're seeing him like throwing down dunks on people. Seeing Carmelo's son now rising those ranks will make you feel pretty old.
Well, you get used to it. I remember when Vince Carter retired.
Right.
And Vince officially became the last NBA player who was older than I am that was playing in pro basketball. So when you're young, you're like, wait a second, am I the same age as NBA players? That makes me feel old. Then you get to the point where you're older than literally everybody who plays in the NBA. So I had that realization after Vince Carter retired.
At least you had Vince, though, who literally played in 4 different decades. The only player to have ever done that. So at least he kept that feeling for you going on for like 15 years. That's good to have.
So according to the most conservative estimates, Ja Morant and his 2 suspensions for brandishing a firearm during Instagram live streams on his friend's account, when you take into consideration he had a signature shoe deal and you take into consideration what he lost in salary, he was suspended without pay, and then into consideration what he could have lost as a result of his ineligibility for postseason awards, the most conservative estimates are Ja Morant has lost $50 to $60 million as a result of 2 separate incidents where he's been brandishing a gun. The one thing that you can't do is make the gun gesture during a game to the opposition. Like, it's go double bird.
Yeah.
Do anything. Take your shorts off. Don't do that. But the one thing that you unequivocally cannot do is the gun gesture. He went double barrel towards the Warrior bench last night during a game, and the NBA is now investigating. How much does a guy have to lose to realize the one thing you cannot do is the thing that you actually did?
Yeah, man. It's watching it with Ja. It's not surprising at this point, right? Because he's been given an edict from the league to, kind of go about certain things certain ways. And when you're Ja Morant and you have a history of doing this, and here's the deal, it's not just a history of like pretending like you have a gun on Instagram Live. There's a history also of people in his circle making threats towards players and other teams, and stuff in like the tunnels with the NBA that the security has had to get involved with, right? It's not just like an optics thing. It's gone into a little bit of a different space where, and we kind of talked about a little bit of this with Bill, where you're, maybe putting people's safety into question sometimes, people you work with, people who you were employed with at the NBA and at arenas. And yeah, that's just something you can't do. And now you're doing it on like just an optical level. You're just doing it for show, for fun on the floor. It's pretty silly on Ja Morant's part. And it only becomes more silly when you hear from people who grew up with Ja and tell you that he's like from the suburbs, pretty affluent upbringing in that regard. It's like he's trying to continue this, right? He's trying to keep this a part of his image. And to me, it kind of falls flat.
There's no doubt about that. So Dallin Hall into the transfer portal from BYU. Kiana Dawes removes his name from the transfer portal and will return to the University of Utah. It's kind of 2 pieces of news we've been talking about on the program today, but we will get out of here. Fun out of NBA basketball. Not a lot of local stuff outside of Jazz Rockets. Porter, what comes our way on a Thursday edition of the radio show?
On a Thursday edition of The Drive, we will check in on all those hoops games that you talked about. Obviously, kind of a quietly fun few days of NBA basketball. Howard Beck stops by for our NBA Daily Assist on a Thursday from Real Salt Lake. We'll get Jason Kreis on the show. Of course, you've been talking ad nauseum about RSL and their need to acquire new players. Well, that's probably the guy to talk to in that regard. We'll chat with Neil Smith on the Utah Hockey Club. So we're dipping our toes in each of the local market teams, and we'll go from there on a Thursday.
All right, there we go. So join us for a Thursday show, and we'll say goodnight for a Wednesday. And a special thank you to Tony Jones, Chris Camerati, Andy Larson, and Bill Oram. A lot of good stuff on the show today. If you missed any of it, the website's an option. It's ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. The ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store for free. And our podcast is free as well. And we're asking for your support. If you have some time tonight and you like what we do, please support us via our podcast page. Wherever you get your shows, we're there. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. If you have a moment, click the link wherever you subscribe to shows. And you can search The Drive with Spence Checketts. Hit the subscribe or follow button. They all ask you to do something different. But you can leave a rating and a review at any podcast catcher. If you say nice things in the comments and give us all the stars that they allow you to, it helps us out. He's Porter. I'm Spence. Saying goodnight. Enjoy your Wednesday evening. We'll talk to you on a Thursday Drive. As always, you can find that right here on ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. We are proud to be part of Utah's ESPN radio network.